Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and with me is someone.
It's a mystery.
Okay, yeah, no, it's not. There he is, right there. Tony, I don't need Tony going to come in tonight. I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, he'll be here at some point.
Shortly.
He's just on patrol.
So we have a show for you tonight. We had to get started early tonight, folks. That's why we may have a little bit of a lower count starting out, but they'll get here. We always do a little bit less on Friday for some reason, but Sunday it picks up. We do pretty good on Sunday. I tell you who blew it up big time was Barton Nunley. Very proud of my colleague and what he was able to accomplish. Not only did he do a great show, him and Letitia did a great job interviewing Joe Barger, but they also destroyed the competition. I was most pleased with that. Great job, Barton, Letitia. Blondes and Booze for helping out. They're good people, and the cream rises to the top, doesn't it? 6.7 thousand views in 2 days, and then they had another video before that with 17,000 views. It's already hit 17,000. That's good work. Those are real numbers. Not that fake AI.
Yeah, they're growing really nicely.
Mm-hmm. Organically, like I did.
Mm-hmm.
None of the fake subs and fake views. The real. As they say, real recognizes real. And so tonight we're going to have somebody on the show who's been on the show before. He's been on the show before, folks, and he's a fan favorite, and I've had a bunch of people requesting him to come back on. Me and him had a little bump in the road, but we worked it out, and it was really an argument that was made between him and another person. It was made possible by somebody who I'm not too fond of or keen on, who was actually had somebody that I really don't like on their show Wednesday. They went head to head with Barton. I think that guy had a lot to do with our falling out. And but anyway, it is what it is, and so we are where we are. And some people don't like him and think he's controversial, and some people do like him and think he's a good guy. Me and him buried the hatchet months ago, and it wasn't much of a hatchet, really. Like I said, it was a fight between him and someone else, and I was a little upset because I had tried to help, and I mediated, and then it didn't work out. So when something like that happens, you tend to go in your feelings, and we all did, and kind of went our separate ways. But, it doesn't stay that way. If they're a colleague and they do good work, which I think he does at certain points, I think he's made a lot of good inroads in this community. And there's something that he was on our show, we talked about, that I think it's important that he came back on and talked about it. And one of those things is, you're going to find out tonight. He was on our podcast. We did 2 episodes, and we didn't get to touch on this particular subject we're going to touch on tonight. I think it's very important. And when he was on the live stream, there was all this chaos going on, so he wasn't able to get to it at that point either. Now, I know some people have he's, controversial, so people don't like him. But that's just tough, You're not going to like everybody that your friends interview, but trust me, okay? Bettina, really good friend of mine, she's interviewing somebody coming up that I'm not real fond of, but it's, it is what it is. During this whole war, people have shown their true colors, and the good people have stood by us, and I was surprised by some of the people that stood in my corner. And by the same token, I was surprised by some of the people that came at me, that stabbed me in the back. That's okay. That's okay. Let them have their day, because we're going to have the night after night after night and all the days after. This thing will wind down eventually and come to a halt, and these people will have no more ammunition, and they'll be done. It's not going to last forever. It can't. They can't sustain it. One of the dumbest things I heard this week, it was a stupid quote that I heard, was, man, these guys, these law enforcement guys, man, they just really bring something to the table. I don't know, some kind of crap that he was saying. about being on the show on Wednesday on the Fiction Writers Show. I'm not even going to say his name. The Swamp Man said, I was like, "What are you serious?" I thought he was like a jailer. I didn't even think he was a cop. I thought he was like, is he like a corrections officer or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But
I know his partner, the other guy's a cop, and he's the heavyset dude. But I didn't know he was. I thought he was a corrections. I know he said he was or something like that. But we prayed for him when it was time. We did the right thing. We did the Christian thing. We prayed for him. Still don't like him. Never will. He didn't even acknowledge that I said a prayer for him. We tried to help him. And he's that way. I didn't expect anything because he said he would never forgive me. That's on you, dude. You don't want to forgive. That's on you. It's your soul. You do what you want with it. The anger in me would say, don't forgive, because I know that it's going to put you somewhere bad. But the good in me is going to say, don't do that. You should forgive. But it's on you. And them two go great together. Like a rotten ham and Swiss sandwich. Big old duds. Mall cop, exactly. But they did manage to squeak out, I think, 183 people in their chat, while Barton had 400, or they had 186.
Yeah.
At the top.
And
right?
I think Barton had 480
483. I think Barton topped out at 486. So that's only 300 more.
Mm-hmm.
So while Barton was blowing them out of the water, they were over there
double.
Jaw jacking about, basically scratching each other's backs, talking all great. I just listened to a little bit of it, and they were talking about me. I tuned in literally. He was like, "Well, like that, man, we ain't gonna talk about blah 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 blah." I knew what you were doing. You flapping, jaw jacking, jowls flapping. Why don't you go eat you some gumbo and just shut up? Just go sit there with your fake AI. Yeah, that's it. That's my rant, folks. I'm done. Anyways, I'm very happy with the results. I'm happy with what happened. My guy took care of business, like a pitcher that comes in and shuts you down. 9 hitless innings. You want to talk about inside baseball? There it is. Or like what the Raiders. The Raiders are my third favorite team in the NFL. I'd say the Cowboys and Texans are pretty much neck and neck, and then the Buccaneers are right behind them, and then the Raiders. So maybe third or fourth team. But I don't like anybody behind them. That's just it. Them. Every now and then a team will come along, and I like them for a little while because they're just a good team. And they don't have to win the Super Bowl. I just respect them, and I think that I like the players and whatever. But I like the Raiders. I've always liked the Raiders. And I really like them now that they're out of California and they're in Las Vegas. But they destroyed San Diego. Well, I don't know, they're not San Diego anymore. They're L.A., which is even better.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, they did move.
They destroyed the Chargers. It was crazy. 63-7 at starting the fourth quarter. Like, what is this? That's like high school scores. It's like a basketball game where one team doesn't show up.
It's almost like leaving California makes good things happen for you.
But if you are of a certain mindset, please stay until it falls into the ocean.
Yeah.
We are more than happy to oblige you staying there.
Yeah, if that's the case, Texas sucks and everything here is bad and everything where you're at is
all
great.
The good things.
Stay there.
The bad things. As you can see, Cobra Commander. We're all the bad things here. Don't come here. Don't come here. It's horrible. That being said, everybody's doing good. We got Sibylla Irwin. We're trying to get her to where she needs to be so she can be monetized on YouTube. Do we have the link?
Yeah.
So we're going to put the link in there. She's one of my colleagues, good friend. And let's pray for Bettina Moss. She's going through some health issues right now, as apparently we all are because, well, I'm not going to get into it. But, she's going through some health issues. I'm sure it's just a coincidence. So before I bring on my guest, I got to tell you something. I got to tell you a ghost story, but I'm waiting to get the chat filled up a little bit. But it's pretty crazy. It happened to my wife, but it's also happened to a few other people. I did a little digging, and I found out from our patrol captain that not only has she had some experiences in this place, but some of our other guards have too. I didn't know this, but some of the people that have worked there had some weird things happen. And you never know. Like I had no idea that place was like that. It's an apartment complex, and they've got 2 garages, and there's a front garage and then there's a back garage. And I had only ever done the front garage. I knew of the back garage, but we ended up doing the back garage. Totally different than the front one. A lot different. I would say more haunted, you know? This camera's bugging me. I don't know what we're doing here. But I did not expect it to be the way it was. And my wife did not expect it to be the way it was. And so she went in and she covered for about 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours. And she's a trooper. She's been out of the hospital only like, what, a week?
Mm-hmm.
Week and a half, something like that, a week. Been through all kinds of tests. They're trying to figure out what's wrong with her. They know they have her on a heart monitor. And she went and sat post for me, which is just sitting in a car. But, and we desperately needed it because we're shorthanded. And so she's like, yeah, I'll just sit there. It's no big deal. And the patrol captain will come through there every hour, 30 minutes, whatever, to check on her. So we were okay. Yeah, we could do that. And we had to move a bunch of stuff. And we needed somebody to cover for a few hours, and she did it. But we didn't expect what happened. And after we talked to the patrol captain, she was like, yeah, this is what's happened to me. So she's telling us what happened to her before we even had a chance to tell her everything. All I did was tell her my wife had a weird night there. And the captain began to tell us everything, which was freaky. Because that kind of confirmed that Nellie wasn't losing her mind. And then we found out that a couple other guards and a couple other patrol people have seen things there. But before we get into that, I have another one I got to tell you. I got a story just a couple days ago, and it's going to tie into what we're talking about tonight a little bit. It's an alien abduction scenario. This is weird. I got a guy that sent me this message, and I was just about to write some stuff down, and then I got sent a message. Let's see if I can find it. I want to send a shout out to Stetson Lewis, who's an MMA fighter and a bull rider. Takes a lot of balls to do both of those, and he does them both. Thank you for that message. That was very kind. I appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's been messaging and checking in on me and Nellie. It's been, nice. Let's see if I can find this. Okay, so this guy messages me. His name is John. I'm not going to say his last name. I don't have permission, but I'm just going to read it because I didn't even, so he says, Mr. Turner, I've never really had any paranormal experiences. When I was somewhere around 10 to 12 years old, I had a dream that gray aliens were looking in my window at night while I was trying to sleep. Then when I woke up, I was laying in the bed on the opposite direction from the way I slept. Nothing else has ever happened, so I always just figured it was a dream. And for some reason, I laid the opposite direction after going to the bathroom or something. Anyways, I saw something in the sky tonight like I've never seen before, and it made me think back to that night. It was a bright light that left a blue trail behind it, almost like a shooting star, but it was way lower, like below the altitude planes fly at. I could be wrong, but it seemed like only a few hundred feet high. I'm taking my dogs out and hook them up to their leads, and it appears out of nowhere, flying from a direction of a wooded area behind the house. It's flying way slower than any shooting star I've ever seen. It flies over kind of to my right, going over the house, and then poof, then the blue tail, the light making it vanish in an instant. Not that crazy of a story, but I was wondering if you know anyone who's seen anything like this. Yes. And then he says, thanks again for all you do, good sir. God bless you and yours. So thank you, John, for that story. I will say this. We had one right here in Central Texas, in Hutto. which is where the Dogman has been seen a couple times. And Hutto is adjacent to my hometown. It's in between Austin and Taylor, my hometown. That's where your mother lives, right? She lives in the country outside of Hutto.
Yeah.
And we got a story not too long ago. And this woman blew my mind. She said, I've been watching your show for all of 2 months. Not that long. This was about a month ago. It was at the beginning of November. So that would have been, she started around the time of the conference. She said, I was turned on to your show by my daughter. Well, her daughter-in-law. And she said, I'm not going to bore you with a whole bunch about me. She just went straight in. She said, I've seen a Dogman. I've seen a UFO flying very low. That's not so unusual. The unusual thing is that she saw them at the same time. Then I go to the file that I had created, and you know how organized I am. So it is how do you structured chaos? No, what is it called?
Organized chaos.
Organized chaos. That's what's going on in the studio right now too. It is really organized chaos. So what we got going on is I go to a file and I put it in there, which is it's just wonderful the way it's gonna take days. See, when Maddie comes to town, I'm going to just have her sit in front of a computer for days and just give her snacks and just keep her there until she organizes.
Just give her like snacks and like pre-workout pre-workout powder and some bottled waters. Here, you got your water, you got your energy, you got your food. Just work like a robot.
Don't complain.
Yeah.
Okay. She's like, can I see the rest of the house?
And shelter. You know,
shelter.
I mean, we're providing shelter.
You can't see the rest of the house.
Really can't
Maddie.
complain.
That's what's going to happen. Maddie's over there like, it ain't happening, But no, seriously. So I go to a file on the computer. And it's all, there's like a bunch of different names for stuff. And I'm like, what is this? Rooftop Dogman. I'm over there looking. I'm like, what is this? A couple of those I peeled off of a group somewhere, and I never did get a hold of the person. So I could retell the story, but it's from a group. And so I just had to like go in, what is this from? And it says group name on there, because I cruise the group sometimes. I can find stories that are threads based on what I've already heard. And sometimes you start off one-off, whatever, then it goes blah, 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 Thank you for that donation. Aussie Sue, hadn't seen you in a while. William Bedard, hadn't seen you either in a while. Thank you for that donation, guys. We appreciate it. Who do we got here? Ben Full Hat. What's up, Ben? It's a cool name. Thank you for everybody who's donating. We really appreciate it. This is part of the food drive. We will just be keeping the money and going to the food drive. That's all going to go to the food drive. Once we get the steaks bought, we will take a big old photo of it and show you what we're doing. So that's it, yeah. But here's what happened. I did find a couple others. And then I found a couple more. And I thought, there's enough in here. There's about 5 good fat stories in there. And I thought, there's enough right here to make one of the episodes. So we're probably going to drop that on a Tuesday. Dogman and Aliens. Which is what we're going to talk about tonight with our guest. Who I think could tell it better than anybody because it's something I've talked to him about on multiple occasions. But I realized it's never been on the show. And I was talking to Tony, but he's not here right now. But I was talking to Tony about it, and Tony went back and listened. He said, no, it wasn't on there. So, what a shame. So I said about a month ago, I said, hey, I need you to come back on the show. He said, yeah, what's going on? I said, look, you need to talk about what you know. So that's what's happening. When you go out to the public and you randomly meet somebody from another one from a restaurant, myself and my wife, we met a waiter, and his name is Justin. If you're listening, hey, Justin, it was nice meeting you. Guy had a bunch of information, a ton of information. And so I'm waiting to get all of his stories, but he was all into everything. And it was so weird because it was so busy there yesterday. We were going to walk out and just say, you know what, it's too busy. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then Nellie started up a conversation with the hostess who was wearing her name in Egyptian lettering. And she started talking. Then our waiter comes up and we started talking to him. He had an Egyptian tattoo. He had a lot of tattoos. But he had a tattoo on an Egyptian symbol, and I said, that's Egyptian. And we started talking, and then we just hit it off. And next thing you know, we're talking about, underground bases and everything, Antarctica and all kinds of stuff. It's kind of how it happens. So at the same time, I get home and I get messaged by a girl that I had met years ago. I say years ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago at Topgolf. And she's like, you don't remember me, but I used to go in there and talk to my friend that worked at Topgolf. I was introduced to you by your nephew, which would be, I think, Zane. I'm not real sure. I think it was Zane.
Yeah, probably.
And she said that I gave you a story about a creature that I saw. She's like, well, I, my mother, and my mom's sister, which is her aunt, saw it again. But it was different. So that was an interesting story. So then I start going down the rabbit hole with that one because here we go again with the weird eyes. This thing had green eyes. And you're like, what is the significance of that? Why does that pop up over and over again? I can't tell you exactly why, but I have my own theories. I also think that, like I've said before 100 million times, I'll say it again, the nature of reality is not what you think it is. When the maps changed, if they can download a version of our reality to us, then something's not right. It's your mustache, man. It's like, does that thing mine does. It's like
what?
It's curving in.
Oh, yeah.
Letting it grow. There you go. You fixed it.
I didn't even mean to grow it. I just realized I forgot to shave it for a couple of weeks, and then I was like, well, screw it. I don't want to mess with it.
I was wondering what you were doing. I was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like I usually just keep my face shaved, but
it looks good. I like it. It's a new look for you.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, I mean, I wear a beard. I like it. But I have a baby face. I've always had a baby face. And as I've gotten older, people are like, "Oh, you're gonna lose that baby face one day." It's still here.
Yeah, I think I kind of got that too. Like,
I still got the Campbell's food is good. Campbell's soup is good. Food head looking baby face. But at least I'm not like my friend Marshall. I call him Baby Ostrich Head Face, or Boff. I've been calling him Boff for 25 years. But he's a hell of a kickboxer. I can't talk too much. Here's the other thing I'm going to tell you. I'm at the gym training, and I meet another guy, just random. Same thing. He's had a UFO encounter. He says, I have a brother, which is his stepbrother, but he says, he's my brother. He's like, they were raised together since they were 4, both of them the same age. Very unique situation with his parents, too. It was weird. But his stepbrother, had a Dogman encounter. And of all places, in the middle of a city, in Dallas, as a child. He was like 9 or 10 years old. And I'm going to start with this one here. I'm going to tell you now we got 300-something people in here before I get my guest on. Go ahead and message him and say we're going to bring him on 9:30.
Okay.
You got his number or not? You use mine. Here's the thing. Imagine if you're a child and you go to a restaurant with your family, a Chinese restaurant. It's in a shopping center. And then you go outside the back door, and he's like on accident. He didn't mean for this to happen. He just like got turned around. He was a kid, and he was like real busy, just, thinking, having fun, whatever. It was his brother's birthday, which would have been the guy that gave us the story. He gave me and Anthony the story. Here's the scenario. They're having like a little birthday get-together. Now, I didn't ask, but apparently this was his favorite restaurant. So I'm like, you wanted to go to a Chinese restaurant? I said, yes. When I was a kid, he goes, I was obsessed with, what is it called? Lo mein. Who doesn't like lo mein? I love lo mein. But I mean, he was like, I was obsessed with lo mein. I would eat it every chance I got. We lived in a suburb of Dallas, right outside of Dallas. And he's like, we lived right outside Dallas. And so we drove in to town to go to this restaurant that I had eaten there one time, and I liked it. So then my brother gets up to go to the bathroom. He gets turned around, and he ends up walking out the back door, and it locks behind him. To this day, his brother, we'll call him Jake, because that's his name. Jake was like, and I talked to him briefly, but Jake was very adamant. He goes, dude, and Jake, you have a very thick country accent. He's like, I walked out the door and I was in another world, as he said. I'll say it in Jake's voice. He's like, I look to my left, I look to my right, and there's nothing there but darkness and trash cans and a grease trap that stunk to high heaven. Bunch of woods, or at least trees. He's like, and I see something shaking the fence. I see two gray hands shaking this fence. And he's like, and I'm frozen. I'm standing there, I'm looking at this. Thank you for that donation, Miguel. Miguel always coming through. Liberty, thank you for that donation. All you guys, we really appreciate it. What did he say? Hi, Josh, family, blah, 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 blah.
He says, I just sent you guys a gift in the mail today. It should be, it should be to you guys next week on Thursday, and I hope you like it a lot. God bless, and I'm excited for tonight's show.
And if anybody is waiting, we have finally got the shirts organized and ready. So give us a few days and we'll do the mail offs. We just have not. We've been everything is a mess in here. Yeah. I did not realize what a mess it was until I came in here today. So there's just boxes of stuff everywhere because we're switching the rooms. And hey, Larry, what's going on? Larry can attest that he's been to my studio a couple times. He knows it's a big mess in here right now. You wouldn't even recognize, Larry. There's so much stuff everywhere, just moved around. So once we get it all organized, hopefully by the end of the weekend, if we have time, and hopefully we can get the mail offs done by Tuesday. We're going to try, but then it is Christmas time, so it may take a little bit. So what ended up happening? He looks around, he sees darkness. Everything was those nasty yellow lights. You know, you can't really see good. We always say in security, those are the worst lights because the lighting is so bad. They don't do anything. Those are perfect for criminals, folks. Those yellow lights don't do anything.
Oh, those nasty sodium lights.
Sodium lights don't do nothing. They love those. They'll feast on you.
I mean, they pretty much cover everything with this nasty film of yellow, so you can't recognize anything.
And the problem, too, with cameras don't work.
Yeah.
They will look. We had somebody, one of our clients, well, they're not our client, but they were connected to our client, and they had us go and work for them now. We're working for them. But somebody came, they looked right up at the camera, stared at it with their goofy look on their face, and then stole 14 sets of washers and dryers. We were not responsible. That was not our post. It was not our assignment, but it is now. So when I went in there to meet with the management, they showed me that, and I was like, wow. This dude walked right up, looked right at the camera, and proceeded to steal everything in sight.
Yep.
Those cameras, this guy didn't even wear he wasn't even wearing a COVID mask. He didn't even use the mask to hide.
The cameras are useless.
They're useless. He just went up there and just stole. And we have a picture of him. We don't know who he is. But it's, I don't know. Point being, this guy comes out the back of the restaurant and where is he at? He doesn't even know. He's a kid. He's never been to the back of this restaurant. In fact, that was the first time that he'd ever been to that restaurant. They had picked up food from there, but not gone in and eaten there. Mm-hmm. And they were with two of their friends that were the same age. And he's banging on the door because he's scared and he sees this gray thing. And then he hears, bam, and it jumps over the fence. And he's this loud thud. He goes, I was just a kid, and maybe it just seemed bigger and louder than it was because I was a child. He's like, but I turned around. He's 30 years old now. He's like, I turned around and I look, and I see this enormous gray creature. It's almost like a cartoon, he said, the way it looked. It had like this white shield, like a triangle on its chest, like a fur. He said, and it was like lifting up its head and moving it back and forth. And he said that he noticed that that it was doing something with its jaw, and it was doing this popping thing with its jaw, and then its snout kind of popped into place. And I said, wait, whoa. So I asked him. I was like, hey, listen, I mean, was it changing? I mean, was there a transformation? He says, not exactly. He didn't see it change from a man or something else into whatever the heck it was. But its head was doing something weird. He said he thought it was chewing something, but the jaw was not closing. And then the bottom jaw kind of went up, and then the top jaw went down, and it kind of went like it was, and then it kind of like focused its eyes, and his eyes kind of beaded down and was like staring at him. And then he goes, this weird hands, it was making like a cracking noise, and it was like moving its body around, like it was adjusting. And then it started kind of walking toward him, and he's like, I thought I'm going to die. I'm just, He's like, I had seen werewolves on TV before, but it was like not in the forefront of my mind. It's not something I was like, he's like, it's not something I was like hyper aware of, that's my words. The way he said it was something that wasn't like, he thought about all the time. So he wasn't like, he's like, I knew what they were. I was aware of them, but it wasn't like something that I was constantly thinking about. I wasn't a fan of werewolf movies. I wasn't a child that looked at Underworld and all that. Yeah. He told me this.
It's something that shouldn't exist.
Yeah. But he knew that this thing was a monster. He's like, I'm looking at a monster. He's like, and I said, if you had to say what you thought it was, what would you call it? And Jake said, I would say it was a demon. Being from a Christian background, he goes, at that time, I was a Baptist. He's like, I would say it was demonic. It was some sort of demon. I said, but it was moving on the ground. It was, the ground was kind of shaking, whatever. And I think this thing was getting some fear out of him. Here's the weird thing. In that same shopping center at that time, there was another store, like 2 stores, and then there was another restaurant on the end. A guy comes out of that restaurant, and he's on his phone. He's like, guy's just talking on the phone, like a cordless phone.
Yeah.
And the guy's like starts spraying a trash can, and he's like talking, and he thinks it was like a Mexican restaurant, but he couldn't remember 100%. And he said the guy looks over at him, and that werewolf creature has got its back to this guy, and it was the werewolf-looking creature was cognizant that there was a guy back there because it stopped, turned, and looked, and kind of was like, okay. And then it turned back to him and was like focused on him. And oh my gosh, he's like, he thinks, well, this guy had to have seen it. He's going to go in there and tell somebody.
Yeah.
I'm saved. That didn't happen. The guy just kept talking on the phone and act like he didn't see anything.
What?
Which made him think that he was hallucinating because years later he was confused by it, right? Then, just when he thinks it couldn't get any worse, the one light that was back there that was illuminating the area went out. Then it was really dark and it was hard for him to see, and he hears the guy back there still talking, and this creature begins to snap its jaws and snarl and make a bunch of weird noises and slowly walk towards him, still not moving really fast. He asked me, he's like, what do you think that was? I said, to me, it's very simple. It was trying to get fear from you. It was maximizing the fear level from you. And he said, why? I said, I don't know why these things do what they do, but I think that it wanted you to be afraid. Then, before he decides he's going to take off running and go all the way around the building, which would have probably not been a good idea because he probably would have been caught by this thing, somebody opens the back door. And to this day, he doesn't know who the guy is. He said it happened so fast, it didn't even make sense. It was like the back door opened, and he hears people talking in another language. Obviously, this is an Asian restaurant. I would assume it's probably Mandarin. Yeah. And they open the door, and he's like, grabs him and pulls him inside, and then closes the door. Boom. And the whole thing is over. And just as quickly as it began. And then they take him and they take him up to the front. There's these like beaded whatever that they use to you don't go past that, whatever. And they push him out, and then he turns around and looks, and the guy takes off walking. He doesn't see who he is or anything like that. He runs to the table. He tells his parents, and they're just like, his mother was a very skeptic, and his stepdad, the way they described the stepdad was very kind.
Mm-hmm.
That would be his brother's dad. His mother was, apparently she was a very hard-nosed person. She'd have cirrhosis. She drank a lot. But she was very hard to deal with, very complicated person, as they said. And she would not put up with them talking about anything. They lived in a house at one point that had a ghost in it. A ghost that did some things, that caused some problems. And everybody was suffering. They later had a half-sister that was born. She's 4 years younger than them, so they got married right as she was pregnant. And then they had another sister about 2 years later. And they all pretty much had problems with the mother. The weird thing was that his stepbrother, usually the stepmom was really mean to the stepchild when they act like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of like her favorite, which was kind of weird. She was nice to him, but he himself, that was his own mother, he was always at odds with her. And I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but he could never talk to her about what he saw. But one day they were coming home from Little League, and like him and his stepbrother, both the same age, or 2 months apart. He's 2 months older. And they were with one of their best friends, Kyle, who was always with them. And they began to talk about that incident. And his stepdad said something very weird. He says, man, I'll never forget that. At the end of the party, whatever the little dinner we had, he goes, one of the cooks came up to me and says, hey, you need to, and he talked perfect English. He says, you need to keep a track of your children. He's like, one of them was in the back. And something bad almost happened to him. My question was, it's a metal door. How did one of those guys know to open that door, grab him and pull him in, and then just close the door quickly before this creature could react? How did it know something bad was happening? There's so many unanswered questions.
Yeah.
The phenomena just goes on and on. It's so weird because you don't get the answers just like one scenario, or one scenario doesn't do it. And I asked him, I had to ask, I said, Jake, have you ever had anything else happen to you? No, that was it. Other than the ghost that they had in their house, which they said looked like a flame, which is a whole nother weird thing.
Oh, nothing. Just, a flaming thing that used to...
Well, and it did start like 2 fires in the house, which they all got punished by the mom, but the dad stuck up for him because he saw it too one day. He was sitting in his den on the computer, and he saw it in his peripheral. He saw like a light or a flame, and then he sees it on the screen, and he's like, what the heck? He turns around, he looks, and he sees this thing standing behind him, and it just looked like a cylindrical flame, like an orange flame.
Did he say how big it was?
I think he said it was like half the size of a person. Because I asked him that. He was like, if you took the legs off of a person, so that would be half of a person.
I have so many questions about that alone, let alone all the other stuff.
Well, we can answer those, but not right now, because we did go into detail about that. And I talked to his brother about it. I tried to get his younger sister to talk about it, but apparently it traumatized the crap out of her because her right arm is burned up. Like the forearm is scarred from this entity. And even after all this, her having to go to the hospital, the mother still wanted to believe that they were playing with fire and that it was her son that was doing it. And he was like, it wasn't me. And I asked him, I was like, was it you? He says, no, sir. No, sir. I did not do that. He goes, I did not play with matches. I did not do that. He's like, I got spanked for it over and over again until my dad, because they don't call him the stepdad. They just say his dad. He's like, my dad finally got tired of it and told her to knock it off, quit blaming the kids because it ain't them. He also believes that God actually revealed that thing to his dad so that he would know that they weren't lying, because he thought that maybe, the dad knew they weren't lying and believed him, but he wasn't 100% sure. But it gave him a sense of relief to know that, it had terrorized his dad too. The way you word things, see, if you word it like that, it sounds really bad, doesn't it?
It's a good thing you suffered with us.
Well, shame on you because you wished that on your dad. Look what happened. That's all good. His dad's still alive. He's actually remarried. So, I mean, and here's the thing too: his stepdad, or his dad, I should say, his dad he's still playing softball. He's older than me.
Well, I mean, Daryl's husband, Stan, the guy's an athlete.
Yeah, Stan's a beast. Former Marine, Vietnam vet. Any questions? Anybody has anything to add before we bring on our guest? I can tell you this. If it was me at that age and I was in the back alley of a Chinese restaurant and I saw a werewolf, Dogman, whatever, when they brought me back inside, I would have smelled really bad.
Yeah.
What's funny about that?
I would have had to change. I would have had to change some drawers. I'm not gonna lie.
You'd have to hose me down.
Because that was, and I even asked that question. I said, "Did you?" He goes, "Did you poop your pants?" He goes, "No, I didn't." I was like, "Well, that's a plus."
Better man than me.
Because if I was a kid and it happened to me, I probably would poop my pants.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about it now, and when I was young, I was in Denver with my family, and I don't know why, but I guess I found a cat, and I've always been a loved animal, so I started just chasing this cat, and I guess I went like miles away. So I worried my whole family, and I ended up in like this back alley just messing with this cat, but it was like right behind a Chinese shop, and it was just like this little dingy area. So like when you were telling the story, I was like, man, that could have, just imagining myself in that area.
You never told me that part. You actually ended up behind a Chinese restaurant?
That's where they found me. Like they went
in Denver, I know that, but I never knew.
Yeah, I went like ways away.
I thought you like jumped out of the minivan and ran toward it or something like that.
That's another
That's
one.
when he was mad. He didn't get his way or something like that.
No,
right?
no.
Like,
I was young, and that's why I've always been a game addict. Is because when I was young, like real
Always
young,
been a what?
A game addict.
Game addict. Okay.
When I was real young, I was at a friend's house playing. I think it was like a Game Boy. It was the first time I ever saw it, and it just absolutely astounded me. And then when we had to leave, I was so heartbroken.
We know how ridiculous you are with video games. You still are.
Well, no, I was heartbroken. So while my mom was driving, she wasn't going fast, but like she was just driving down the street. I would open up the van door and jumped out.
That's how it
This
started.
dude says, "And an outlaw says," yeah, that's what I thought.
What?
What is his name? I can't read it. It says Anna and Outlaw, something like that.
Oh yeah,
That's what I heard too. I was like, what? I mean, if that's what you are, that's what you are. But I was also like, what is? But anyway, that story was astounding to me because, what did it say? Which one? Which Mushu and Tony? No, Tony is Mushu. That's the one with the Batman's. Put the camera on, you guys. Tony's the one with the little weird dog.
Yeah. This is Tony
Did you
Mushu,
drop your phone again?
and this cockeyed dog is Banjo.
He looked at you like,
What, Bubba? What? Your eyes facing two directions.
that's because he's a security dog. You got to keep an eye on
you
everything.
don't have his uniform on today.
No.
We have him a little Cobra shirt to be part of Cobra. And Anthony is the one next to him
Yeah.
with the jihadist beard. Run. So here we go. You got this situation where a guy is pulled out of an alley. And it's just one of the weirdest cases to me. I mean, I'm like, I don't know what to make of that. But it didn't involve aliens. So that's why we're going to call the guy we're about to call. You want to go ahead and do that?
Yep.
Because the keyboard here doesn't work, even though we have another keyboard that I could use. But to hell with that, right? Let's just not do it. Let's not ever use that. Let's just leave it there to get dust. That's what it deserves. That's why we can't have nice things. The thing comes on and I see Gary Brand on my Facebook feed from Within the Midst, looking all dapper.
Hello?
Hey, guest, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
Okay, that's good.
Good. So, folks, this is Jody Cook. I'm sure everybody knows who Jody Cook is. Do you want to say hi, Jody?
Hello. How's everyone doing?
So, Jody and I have known each other for quite some time, and we've been friends for a long time. So, Jody, what I was going to bring you on to talk about, I don't know if you were listening to the show, but you and I left meat on the bone way back when you were on the show the last time when we did the podcast, and we did 2 hours that night, but we didn't touch on a certain subject, not much anyway, and it was something that I've always wanted to go back to. And I think it's very important because I'm about to be embarking on a project, which is going to be a pretty massive undertaking. So I'm kind of figuring out how to start to chew into this sandwich. And it's about the UAP. And now your background, you are the head of the NADP, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
But you started out in MUFON, didn't you?
No, I'm a member of MUFON, but I started out back in the 80s doing a lot of UFO research with a group called ASK, which was Associates for Scientific Knowledge. And we had a TV show that we did back in the 80s. Now, this is a time where before cable, everything was going through public access TV. And it ran for about 10 years. It was a live show we did the first Wednesday of every month, and we talked about UFOs and, cryptids and some other, other topics, but mostly dealing with UFOs. So, like I said, I did that for about 10 years before I actually started to get really heavy into the cryptid stuff.
So when you were doing that research, I know that you had talked to someone, and I don't want to give it away. You can tell the story, but there was somebody that you had talked to me about. You said you had a conversation with somebody, and you were like at a conference or something, and you would talk to someone, and it was about the Dogman, but it was actually at a UFO event. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Well, it was actually at a paranormal event that dealt with cryptid UFOs and the paranormal, and I was speaking at it, and there was a restaurant bar that was connected to the hotel. So I remember everybody was going to the hotel or to the bar area to get something to eat, and I remember going up to the bar, and there was a guy there, and you can tell he's military just by his haircut, his tattoos, and things like that. And he was asking what was going on with everything the conference room and so forth. And I told him it was a paranormal conference, and I was talking about cryptids, Dogman, Bigfoot, and kind of a connection with UFOs and stuff. And we started talking, and he opened up to me a little bit because after he knew I was military and stuff, and he started telling me the story where he said that he was with he was former special forces. He was with I believe he said the 7th Group, and now he is with a private company that is contracted through the military or through the U.S. government, and they basically do is UFO retrieval. That's his job, is what he said. So he told me the story about back in about the 70s, the United States first got in contact with an alien species that was canine in nature. And they had survivors from one crash. Not from the crash from the early 70s, but this was a crash that took place sometime in the early 90s. Okay. So he said that this species was very aggressive. They were very intelligent. They didn't have like real common sense. They weren't real problem solvers, but they were intelligent on other aspects. So what happened is that the species being so dangerous, that the United States government would not allow them to keep them in any facility in the United States because they were actually more of a predator type species. They were a warlike species. So they kept them in a facility in Honduras. And they ended up taking over the facility, killed some of the people that were there, ended up going out, killing some people in the village. They had to respond to it. They get there and they had to take out and eliminate the species. Now, the way he described them was very wolf in nature. They wore a kind of like a body armor outfit that kind of resembled like Halo or something spacesuit type thing, which was kind of like an armor. But they didn't wear helmets. They didn't have shoes on their feet or hand coverings. Okay, so that was kind of odd to me. But he said that's how these things dressed. So he said one of them had a sword that was very similar to a pharaoh's sword. And if anyone has ever seen like the Scorpion King, you would see it's kind of like a crescent type moon, sword.
Yeah, I have a sword very similar to that.
Yeah, he talked about having one of them having this particular sword. So they eliminated them, but he said they had special weapons. They don't use regular military style weapons. They have special weapons that they deal with these things. And I thought that was kind of a very interesting story. It's kind of way out there story, but what made the story to me validated is about a year later, I did another conference and Linda Godfrey was there. And I mentioned it to Linda Godfrey and her husband, and Linda said, I've heard the same exact story, but from a different individual on the same exact location. Everything that I told her, another individual told her about also, which I thought was very, very interesting and, validating. But the thing about the outfit or the uniform this thing was wearing, what made it so unique is when George Lucas did Star Wars, okay, in 1978, the bar scene, they had 2 werewolves in there, okay, in the bar scene. So I actually met Dave Baker at a horror convention, and I asked him about the werewolves. I said, was this something that George Lucas wanted these masks specifically made, or was this something you all just threw in as a filler, for costumes? And he said, no, George Lucas specifically wanted these 2 werewolf aliens made for the movie, for that bar scene. Well, I started doing a little bit more research. So now George Lucas was a Mason. Okay, so he had a lot of connections with a lot of other Masons that were at NASA. Okay, so he was able to see things that no one else was able to see. Even people with security clearances at NASA wasn't able to see. And one of the things, what was kind of interesting, there's a book out called Dark Mission by Richard Hoagland.
Oh, yeah, I know Richard.
Yeah, Richard Hoagland talks about, the Mason connection with NASA and stuff. But there's a picture that was released by NASA of a spacecraft that allegedly crashed on the moon, and there was like a robot type being, the remains of this. And they have a color picture, and it's CP3O's head. I'm not kidding you. If you Google Richard Hoagland's Dark Mission CP3O head, you'll see it. And this is an official NASA document, photograph. So how do you have that connection there, with CP3O and Star Wars? Well, a few years later, after Star Wars, they put a book out of all the characters. And one of the characters that was in that book was a werewolf type alien that was wearing almost the same exact style costume that was described by this guy, which was kind of interesting. It didn't have a helmet. You didn't have the boots on. You didn't have any type of gloves. So I mean, it's kind of interesting. It kind of gives a validation that there was some type of alien species out there that was canine in nature. And did George Lucas get knowledge about that? And that's why he put it in Star Wars. So,
years ago, I was in Vegas and I stayed there for a little while. And I was at, the Mirage. And I was at that casino, and I don't remember what I was doing there, but I was throwing dice, and I was with some friends. And I think we were just on the strip hanging out or whatever. And I used to hang out at Fremont Street too. Mm-hmm. And I had just come with a couple of friends at Fremont Street, and we walked over there to the Mirage. And I don't remember what was going on. There was like a get together or something, and there was a conference that was going on, and a bunch of people from that conference were in the hotel. And I don't remember if it was there at that hotel or if it was somewhere else, and they had gone in there and they were wearing like different types of clothing and stuff. But it was like all Star Trek-y type. It might have been a Star Trek convention. I don't remember. Mm-hmm. But they were wearing different types of stuff. But then at some of these UFO conventions, they'll wear Star Wars and Star Trek stuff. So anyway, there was a girl that was there, and she started talking to me, and she was shooting dice like a pro. I mean, she was probably like young like me. I was in my 20s, and she was, and was hot throwing the dice, So I started, putting some down on her, and I was like, I'm going to follow this because this person's winning. And then afterwards, we kind of talked and hit it off, and then her boyfriend came up, and we were all talking, and I had won a little bit of money, so I was happy. Like I said, I was like 21, 22. And so I just remember having this long conversation with them about UFOs and about aliens and about Star Trek and Star Wars. And of course, this is me years ago, folks, and I had a few drinks in me, so I don't remember every single thing. And of course, they were drinking too, so take it with a grain of salt. But I remember them talking about how there were all these different alien species that lived among us. And one of them, because I had a shirt that had a wolf on it or whatever, and I told them my nickname was Wolf. And they were talking about a species which stuck with me. I may have told you this too a long time ago, but it was interesting because they said there was one that was werewolf-like. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so that conversation was funny that we talked about that, and I don't remember exactly everything that was said, but I just remember that conversation being had, and my friends that were with me, they were just kind of quietly like looking at us like we were crazy, And then later, my friend Chuck that was there. Who lived out in California, but he would come to Vegas like almost every weekend when I was staying there. And he was a surfer. He was a surfer guy. And he was like, dude, one time when I was out surfing, and he was out in Pismo Beach in California, and he's like, dude, I heard the weirdest howling. And he's like, it was dusk, and and they tell you as a surfer too, according to what he told me. Now, I'm not a surfer. I've never surfed, but he said that dusk is when the sharks start to come out. And Tony, you know this, you're a boogie boarder. And they said, don't be out there, whatever. So it was getting dusk, and he was still hitting some waves, and him and his buddy Steve were out there. I know Steve too. And Steve was one of the guys I was with that night. And they heard this crazy howling coming from the beach, and they were like, there's no woods right there where they were at, so they didn't know where it was coming from. And then later that night, they were sitting on the beach with their girlfriends, and they see this green ball of light come down, like something that came into our atmosphere and then just got larger and just disappeared, and then just kind of shrunk back down. And then the same night, they heard that weird howling, and they all just kind of thought, wow, that sounds like a werewolf. But it is weird, though, and, that we talked about that. And then we got into this whole, what if werewolves are real? What if aliens are real? And of course, I knew that there was something wolf-like on its hind legs because I saw it when I was 15. And so I told him, I said, to me, they're absolutely real. I had not seen a UFO at that point. I had never seen anything like that. So I couldn't attest to that. But his friend Steve had claimed that his ex-girlfriend was an abductee. And later on, like years later, you know, when Steve had come to Austin and he stayed here for a little while and worked for us down at the club, he claimed that his girlfriend had an encounter with like this 8-foot tall, like reptilian looking thing, and that it had like, I guess she had encounters with this thing at times where she could have swore she saw something in the background that looked like a really tall werewolf about the same size. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, when you go over these stories and these cases, and of course he didn't talk to the girl anymore. She lived like in Bishop, California or something like that. And they didn't talk anymore. But I wished he could have gotten in touch with her and I could have gotten her information, because you do get stories of these werewolf type creatures showing up on like craft or like facilities where people will go and they'll be, you know, questioned by these grays or the blues or whatever, these weird creatures. And then they'll have something in the background that looks like it. Most recently, I've gotten reports of mantis type creatures with these Dogman looking creatures kind of in tow.
Right.
You know, the grays, we think of them too as like biological robots, but these as like mercenaries. I think that these Dogman could serve the same function, to be sort of like a mercenary species that interacts with them. What do you think of that, Jody?
Well, I talked with this Air Force officer, and he ended up contacting me through Facebook, and we were talking back and forth about just, you know, Dogman and UFOs and things like that. And then he ended up telling me that, you know, Space Force exists, and Space Force exists since like the 1980s. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that the United States deals with X amount of different alien species. But he said there's one particular species of alien that's out there, and we got in contact with them first through another alien species, because we were warned about them by another alien species that you need to watch this particular species because this is what they do. And we got in contact with them and said, you know, look, we're not going to tolerate what you're doing to other civilizations. You know, militarily wise, we can stand up to you. But what this other alien species did was they had clones. And these clones were these wolf-like creatures. Okay. And what they would do, excuse me, is send them to a planet. They would cause havoc. They would kill the people, just totally just, you know, destroy whatever civilization there. They would come in, kill them off, and, you know, be friends with the people of that planet. They would infiltrate into the government and then end up taking over, you know, total control of everything. Kind of like how people think the reptilians are doing with our government. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me about this species. He says, I've actually was on their ship with other officers and military people from around the world. And we saw these clones of these werewolf type creatures. And he described the outfits that they were having. They were wearing like some type of a bio type suit. They had weapons and so forth, but he said they were like very wolf like looking. And, you know, I can't validate that story. I can only go by what he was telling me. I was able to verify, yes, he was in the Air Force. He was a high ranking officer in the Air Force, but I can't validate the story. But it makes sense that, you know, one, we probably are, you know, in contact with other alien species. We do know there are other type of canine type species that are out there, because we know this through history that there's some type of canine species. You go back to the Greek and Egypt and so forth. I mean, Anubis, you know, the god of death, that was had to be some type of extraterrestrial type creature, that was able to, communicate with those people and be able, to do what they need to do in order for them to see him as a god of death.
So in that respect, that you're on the same page with me if you believe that these
Right.
gods are really just aliens, because I think that they've been coming here for millions and millions and millions of years. I really believe that.
Well, I believe it too, but look at it this way, okay? What's the possibility of them being here before us? Okay, that because if you look at UFO sightings, okay, 80% of all UFO sightings are over water. Okay, 80%. That's a lot. And we're talking like oceans, very deep lakes, very deep rivers. So what's the possibility that they were here long, long before us? They colonized this planet long before us, and they're not traveling, or if they are, they're coming through a different dimension, or even the possibility of the inner earth fairy, where creatures like Dogman, Bigfoot, the mantis, Mothman, their creatures actually live inside another civilization that's inside planet Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was something that was always a different civilization that's been there for thousands and thousands of years before, man colonized, a lot of the land on this planet, or even in this country. It's a possibility, but the technology they would have to have. I mean, they could probably bend light, they could bend the universe and get from point A to point B a lot quicker. That is a possibility, because they have to be thousands of years advanced of us,
Mm-hmm.
in order to do that. There's a really good movie, if people want to watch. It's called Official Denial. It came out, I believe, in the 90s, but it made sense, and it talked about how aliens are basically us from the future, that's coming back to try to save humanity. And it's a really good movie if you can actually find it, and it really makes sense to a lot of the questions about grays and things like that, because that's not the movie isn't the first time I ever heard anything about the grays being humans from the future.
And then the grays are found in like a lot of abduction scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Even when other aliens are there, they tend to show up, kind of like either observing or. I know you've probably heard this story. It's a pretty famous case. There was a woman that was being abducted by the reptilians, and one of the grays had tried to stop it,
Right.
because they wanted to kill her. And they were like, no, not on our ship. And ultimately, one of those grays was killed by the reptilians. And then they were basically left there. And so, but, because they deal with these very, very harsh species, people tend to think of the grays as like, well, they're bad guys, whatever. I think they're just really neutral. I mean, they just seem to kind of do things robotically. They perform tasks, and they just do it kind of like a biological robot would.
Mm-hmm. I spoke with a woman that was an abductee, and she was actually abducted by a canine species. And I got this really beautiful picture that she drew of one of the elders that would actually come and visit her and talk to her after the abduction. But she basically talked about the different type of alien species that were out there, like the reptilians. They want our souls. I mean, because that's energy to them. And a lot of these other species, like the Nordics, the grays and so forth, they fought them. They fought the reptilians, because the reptilians tried to take over their planets, and that these species tried to warn us about the reptilians, and that the reptilians actually is an alien species, but their planet died out and they came to Earth, and they live within, the inner Earth here, through caverns and things like that. And but they're able to shift change, and they get into our government and stuff like that. It sounds crazy, but man, I'm telling you, I really believe it, because when you see some of these leaders, there's something not right with them. The possibility that these things, they can exist, and maybe they control everything, and they can make life hard for us. But it, this whole other thing, you heard about Operation Bluebeam, correct?
Oh yeah.
And that's another thing that I think is way off the shelf, because you might agree with me on this. If an alien species is going to attack us, okay, why would they wait until we are so advanced we're able to fight back, and that we're able to possibly do a lot of damage to them through nuclear weapons and biological warfare and things like that? I mean, why would you not do it when we're still in learning about electricity and all this other stuff, where they can harvest us for food or whatever through so many years and stuff? And that's what really bothers me, that so many people are going to sit there and believe this when it happens, and it doesn't make sense. It's just, why would they wait until we are this far advanced to fight back? It just doesn't make any sense.
One of the things I think is because there were all these other species here that were jockeying for position. And of course, they've been at war off and on. They're just like us, like countries. We fight each other, and they were friends. Germany's our ally. Then we were at war with them. We're friends with countries in the Levant, and then we're fighting with them. And then we're friends with Japan, and then we're fighting with them, and then we're not. And then we fought a war with Britain, and now they're our ally. Yeah. It's the same thing. But no one's going to just sit back and let you take all the resources from a resource-rich planet. Not necessarily because they care about us, but because they want those resources for themselves. Anthony, you had said something, I think, that you might want to tell Jody and the audience what your take on what the alien agenda, when we got that last abduction story. Tell them what you think. It was something you told a witness, but go ahead.
Well, what they want to do here? I mean,
how they view us.
Well, they probably view us as just okay, so they might view us the same way that we view animals, some of them might they might appear to be friendly, or they may not necessarily be doing us harm. They may even try to protect us from harm from other species, but if we compare that to the way that we look at animals, it's like we can call ourselves animal lovers, and I love animals. Tony loves animals. Wolf loves animals. But the fact is, we still eat beef, chicken, fish, pork.
Right.
We have a pet pig at home. I have a personal, a special bond with that pig. I'm still gonna eat pork. I'm not going to eat him.
What a monster.
Yeah.
I'm not going to eat my pig, but I'm going to eat other people's pigs. So the point is, I think it's a mistake to think that just because certain species seem to be looking out for the interests of humanity against other more hostile alien species, to assume
they're literally in our best interest.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the thing of it is, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I'm sorry. But
no, go ahead.
What it is, they know we cannot coexist with other species, let alone coexist with ourselves. I mean, we kill each other just like we kill, animals, not, for food, for sport, and they know that.
Oh, yeah.
And they see, the thing of it is, they use that to their advantage also. And they know that the fact that, when you have an alien species come in, you know, they're like, hey, you know, we're here to be friends, you know, but, you know, deep down inside, they know, look, these people can't coexist with each other. How are we going to coexist with them? This planet has been at war since the beginning of time. The United States is 241 years old, and we've been at war for 210 years.
It's been nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, we only have like 30 years of our existence where we were not in some type of a conflict, fighting.
Yeah.
You know, and other species, they are out there. They see this. They know this. You know that's going on out there. But you know, we work with them. I mean, we got this one real beautiful report where this husband and wife was driving. They were coming home and they got lost off of a side road because there was an accident on the highway, and they're going up this road and going up a hill, and they see like military vehicles. So the husband was in the military, so he knows. I mean, these were U.S. military. And when he gets up on top of the hill, he said there's U.S. military personnel training with werewolves wearing U.S. military uniforms. And I mean, him and his wife is watching this. And the U.S. military personnel tell these werewolves to go after the vehicle. Well, they haul off and they're going down this hill. And he said these things are running so fast, they almost caught up with the vehicle. You know, so we could be training militarily with other species because they might be a much bigger war on the horizon, or, you know, we're training them or they're training us or something.
Yeah, I think you also, you know, you have to recognize that, yeah, we're a species that's very, you know, prone to attack other humanoids. I think it's been shown in the past. But another thing is that the last thing I think this world needs is a common enemy to completely unite all of us. Like, I think that's what they're most afraid of is if they or if they show up, it might be the spark that will completely unify them or Earth against a common foe, and it might lead to bigger issues later on where they're trying to slowly build, like, you know, go underneath the foundation and weed out the roots so that the whole house breaks down.
Right.
There was as optimistic as you.
Well, the thing is, there was a TV show called Babylon 5.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, which was really interesting, and like the pilot show, where we meet this alien race, and you know we were the aggressor, okay, and they were more advanced than us, and they were like really kicking our butts all the way through, and they're ready to invade Earth, and Earth is willing to surrender, but they wouldn't take the surrender. But we are fighting to the last person. And that alien species said, how can we beat them when they know that they are losing, but yet they're willing to fight to the last person? I mean, that's, you know, that's something that tells you about the people that
Our
you're
tenacity.
fighting.
Yeah.
And that's how humans
Or stupidity.
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah,
Pretty damn ignorant, too. I mean, if you look, I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
People's house will be completely ruined and desolate, and they're still, I mean, there's no more ammunition. They're just throwing rocks. I mean, they don't, there's nothing left. And they're like, well, we're just going to keep fighting until it's completely just destroyed, which is just, that's human nature.
Yeah, and we honor those guys that go out fighting like that.
When I was in the Army, there was a guy that was getting ready to retire, a Vietnam veteran, and we were talking about Vietnam. And he said, you know, how were we, able to beat an enemy that's using bow and arrows?
This is not going to stop. I mean,
it's not going to stop, and that's human nature, and that's who we are. And I think a lot of these alien species probably know that.
Oh yeah, and I think that's a big part of the reason why that we've seen such such exponentially large technological leaps, like just probably in the past 300, 200 to 300 years.
Right.
Like if you take that block of time and compare 2 or 3 centuries, compare it to 2 or 3 centuries of any other block of time in history, the advancement of technology is nowhere near as rapid. So, I mean, I think that I think it's not a good thing, and I think that it's definitely something that's influenced by contact with extraterrestrial species.
Yeah, it came from somewhere.
Yeah.
It came from somewhere.
Because if technology advances, if it advances faster than a code of ethics, then those technological advancements just become used for weapons. They just become used to feed people's like greed and lust for power. And I think that these alien species, they know that, so they're like, let's share some of our toys with them and watch them destroy themselves.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for humanity, war has been the birthplace for innovation for a lot.
Yeah,
for a lot of
And
stuff.
I think it's funny that you compared them to animals earlier, Anthony, because if you think about them like environmental protection and some of these rogue ones that kind of break the laws are as like poachers, and also in this situation where like they kind of view us as like a zoo, and you kind of see some monkeys playing with sticks and opening a can with sticks, and you'd be amazed, and you'd be like, oh my gosh. So you kind of give them something, or you just keep giving them a little more, and then like that, they're kind of just doing the same thing to us, where they sell something they liked and they solely gave it to us to see what we'll do with it.
I mean, who's to say like they don't require some form of entertainment too? I mean, if they're humanoid, creatures, maybe they share some similarities and like some same attributes and needs that we do.
I mean, there's always a purpose to
satiate
everything,
curiosity.
Let me answer a question here real quick, guys. Guys and Jody, hang on one second. Brother Heck says, why are all the aliens humanoid? They're not. They're not, actually. They're not humanoid.
I think what he's saying, my mistake is that maybe he's talking about maybe they're humanoid in form, meaning two
some
arms,
are,
2 legs.
but not all aren't. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very common, denominator in the galaxies, that they look that way. But
cephalopods are kind of like aliens.
Yeah, there's a lot of different species, and I think that what we're dealing with, like the fire, like we told that story earlier. It was a guy that saw a dogman when he was a child in a back alley in Dallas. But what's really telling was that he lived in a house with his siblings, and they saw this entity that was made of fire. And I mean, that could easily be some sort of species too, in of itself, because you hear that. And now, of course, you talk about the Jinn and the Fae, which are in 2 different areas. You're the Levant and the British Isles, but they're both they look like flame, in different times. And even in the Quran, I believe they talk about them being made of smokeless flame. And the Fae are often seen as balls of light. But I think they're just plasma is what that smokeless flame is. That's a form.
Right.
But it could be an alien species. Now, here's another thing I wanted to throw at you, Jody. When I talked to a guy named, I'm just going to say his name is Nelson. He's a guy that gave me a lot of information because he was a guard at a base at one point. I can tell you off camera, and I can tell you on camera because I like to live. But he was telling me some pretty amazing things, and I was with another researcher that you may know, but we were on the phone with this guy, and this guy was giving us a bunch of information. It was pretty rapid fire, and I was trying to keep up. But one of the things he was saying was that in this particular facility where he worked, he got to know some of the reptilians, and they were actually prisoners, those reptilians. And the wardens of that were actually reptilians. And so he was confused why those were locked up. He was thinking it was sort of a fifth column situation, but the reptilian that gave him the information was that no, he's like, the planet that we come from, we are the outcasts from that planet. Just like we have nations and other stuff like that, his nation was a warring nation. And so rather than the planet continue to fight with that nation, they just destroyed it utterly. Which was like kind of talks about, like what you were talking about, how they destroyed their planet. Well, I think it was more like they destroyed that area of their planet where they were at because they were a problem. Right. So they were a different species, and the other, or a different race of that being, like we have different races and different types of religion and whatever, that's what they were. And their religion that they practiced was war. And so they were destroyed, imprisoned, and shipped off to a prison colony, Earth. So they ended up here. Then there was a civil war amongst them. They lived within the Earth because the Earth got really cold at one point. We know there was an ice age, and reptilians, guess what? They don't do good in ice. So they went underground where it's always the same temperature. A leader rose up and said that they were getting soft. They weren't doing anything. They weren't trying to take humanity and use them like food, cattle, whatever. And so he destroyed the leader that had kind of taken over and said, let's just make the best of this, blah, blah, blah. Nope, we're not doing that. He calls himself the king of the world. And he is the lizard king, as they say. And it was literally like Jim Morrison, he was actually talking when he says, I am the lizard king. He was channeling a demonic spirit, as he called it. But it was literally this being that was considered to be a god amongst these lizards because he had lived for 30,000 years, which is different lifespans than us. But, if you look at the Sumerian tablets and you go back in time, you look at the Anunnaki, they came here 350,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. And during the reign of Marduk, supposedly, he was attacked by the reptilians during their invasion. But it was really just the ones from their planet dropping them off and telling them, good luck, But that's what the British did in Australia. And, of course, we don't know everything that went on, but according to what some records say, that they were treated like savages. They kind of separated into some sort of like tribes. Some of them got along with the Aborigines, some of them didn't. And then they just kind of sorted it out. And the British were like, here's some food and water, and, well, y'all just figure it out. Whoever gets killed and destroyed and whatever, that's just what happens. And whoever lives, lives. And that's what they did with these guys. They just dropped them off in these sort of prisons, these little cages that were like, and just let them go and said, good luck, fools, because, we're done with you. And this was considered like a backwater dumping ground. Now, this is what somebody told us. This isn't something that I'm saying I believe, because I hear so many different stories and so many different people, and we've talked to some of the same people. We've been in the same circles, so you've probably heard this before too. But the audience may not have. And so what do you think about that these things were underground and then they decided to start warring, but there were other species here already and they were in different levels. I was listening to Linda Moulton Howe the other day, and she was actually showcasing my book and talking to Joe Barger, who was just on Barton's show, and then I was watching. That was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then she started talking about species underground and all the different levels and stuff, and I'm going, wow, that's completely the truth. I mean, that's real.
I talked to this one guy. He did. He's a ufologist and stuff, and he was in the military. He actually did an interview for one of these UFO shows, and I actually talked to him, and he was telling me that he worked at a facility and he went underground, but he was told he wasn't allowed to say the word Jesus Christ or mention God's name because of the Anunnaki that was there, which were giants that were in lizard people and things, and they were preparing for a war with God.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I mean, yeah, and they really think they can win too. That's the crazy thing, that there's a whole. If you listen to, there's an interview with a guy named Abe Finkelstein, and and it's crazy. I don't want to get into it, but if you just go find that, it's been taken off the internet and put back on, taken off and put back on, and he talks about how they're going to make a war with God.
Yeah,
he's dead now. He died years ago, but he just goes into all kinds of weird stuff. And he's not the only one. I mean, supposedly Kissinger was another one who was, heard saying that one day they're going to fight God. Now what they think of as God could be something completely different than what we think of as God. When I think of my God, I think of the Father of Christ. What they're thinking of as God is who knows what. I mean, I have no idea. I know
it's obviously they know that this figure's out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And they know his power and so forth. So they know he exists. And what I find so interesting, I mean, that validates that God exists. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, at least what they think of as God. You and I are both Christian, and we believe that God is the father of Christ. There's no doubt in that. We've had this conversation, but what they think of as God though is totally different. When people go up and accept their awards in Hollywood, and they're like, "I'd like to thank God." Their God is Moloch.
Yeah,
that's not the God that we're thinking of as God. But not all of them. But I mean, there's some of them that do, and some of them are open about it. Some of them are actually just like, yeah, that's what we do. There's I mean, I was at an after party one time right here in Austin, and there were a couple of very famous actors there, and I didn't speak to them, but they were there, and I felt weird going up and saying, hey, I don't know these people. I did get to know quite a few actors and actresses and sports stars, people like that, and became friends with a few of them. But these two in particular, I didn't know them. I didn't feel comfortable approaching them, and I was with my own clique, and they were on the other side doing what they were doing, and one of them began talking to one of my friends. It was my brother's friend. He was over there talking to him, and he was like, dude, this guy was getting into some weird stuff, talking about how the religion of Hollywood is Cabalistic, which is the book of Jewish mysticism, and it's all esotericism, and they worship like Moloch. Really, it's a Canaanite king / little g god. And you get into like the whole, like I said, the rabbit hole. You go down. Oh my gosh! You start to see that these people, I mean, they're not like us. I mean, they have a vast amount of knowledge that they have access to through the Masonic libraries and things like that, and they're given special clearance. Because they have entered into that brotherhood of magic users and whatever, necromancy, and what they know of as magic is really just science that hasn't been discovered by us yet.
right. Here's one thing. I'm a Mason. Okay, I don't practice now because with my illness and stuff, I haven't been able to go to the lodge. But I've been a Mason for 5 years, and when people talk about masonry being, taking over the world and stuff, I literally laugh. Okay. And let me tell you why. Okay. There's a lot of things Masons aren't allowed to talk about, but I'll tell you this. Okay. If people believe that Masons and, the Illuminati are, it's going to take over, you're a joke. Okay, because you have to understand something. What American Masons do is not the same as what the Masons do in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what the Masons do in Ohio is not the same what Masons do in Texas, Louisiana, New York. It's not the same thing. Okay, every state does things different. I mean, I've been to different lodges from different states, and I've seen. I mean, it's like my God, the way when I became a Mason and the ceremony I went through, it wasn't the same ceremony that I saw at it and take place in a different state. So everybody does everything different. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's the same, okay, but there's each place does something different. And trying to get everybody to do everything to stay on the same page, it's not going to happen. Okay. And
I mean, the
tell
Shriners are going to be like, if you just take two different kinds, like Prince Hall is going to be different than the Shriners.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing of it is, and the biggest, and I'll tell you this, the biggest thing, a Mason Lodge meeting is the most boringest thing I've ever done in my life. When I joined the Masons, okay, because my uncle is one. When I joined the Masons, I thought, man, this is Da Vinci Code stuff, demon and angels, and search for the Holy Grail and all this stuff. It's not. It's none of it. It is the most boringest 2 to 3 hours of your freaking life on a Wednesday night. And it was nothing, absolutely nothing what I thought Masonry was. I mean, they do a lot of good things. They do things for the Special Olympics, and there's different events that, they take place in, and there's, fundraisers and stuff, and you have your dinners. It's fun, but it's not the set. I mean, it's not what people think. I mean, you got guys that's been there 30 years in the Masons, and they're having a hard time trying to remember the lines because everything has to be said like theatrics. Okay, it has to be said in the way you were taught. It's like our book. The book's coded, but you have to learn how to read that code. Okay, and you have to be able to speak it and things. Okay, and it's hard. And but I laugh when people talk about the Masons taking over the world and the Illuminati. Maybe they might be a secret group of them that's doing it, but Masons in a whole, there's just no way, because it's going to be the biggest blunder, the biggest blunder.
Yeah, I don't think that it would be like the Masons themselves. I've known a lot of Masons. I mean, my cousins is one, and I don't think that they're doing anything nefarious. I think that when you get to a certain level, and then
Right.
even if you go, and even then, I think you have to choose a certain path at that point. And
Exactly.
then they watch,
Exactly.
and then it's what it is. So it's not
Yeah.
the average Mason. It's just like, that would be like a blanket statement saying that, just this religion, this particular religion
Right.
is horrible because a few people in it are doing things. There's always going to be sects within that are going to do
Exactly.
things. They're going to do bad things. That's in every group. I've been in groups before, and then you see that there's like a cabal within that group, and you're like, okay, what's going on here? Because that they do that. This is tribalism within people. That's the nature.
But the thing of it is, you see it within the field of ufology. You see it in the field of Bigfoot. You see it in the Dogman field. Okay, it's cliques. I mean,
we know this. We had somebody that was undermining us.
Yeah, I mean, it's cliques. I mean, you look at all these different conferences. It's the same people at the same conferences each year speaking. No one's given the opportunity. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love a lot of these guys in the field, but if you don't have that right last name, or have a good book out that you wrote, you're not going to be speaking. And the thing of it is, you take all these other people that's been doing research, they probably have some of the best stuff out there, and can give a lot of good information out to the people that would want to hear it, but they just don't want to do it because they rather somebody with the perfect last name be the one having that information to provide to the people. And that's the problem. It's exactly what you said. This is what's going on, within governments and stuff like that. It goes all the way down to where we are of what we're doing, dealing with this crazy stuff.
Somebody said, Kate Webster, and I'm going to answer, this is a little controversial, but she says, this guy speaking only knows what the Masons want him to know. My father was the youngest 33rd Mason in his lodge at the time, and I spent hours with him listening to him recount every stage of degree. Kate, I'm pretty sure what Jody is saying is that he acknowledges that, but it's not happening with him.
Yeah.
And he's aware of that because I've spent time talking to this guy, and he's not stupid when it comes to that. He's definitely aware of all the theories and the stories and things like that. He's just saying that that's not what he's doing, and at his particular lodge, he doesn't know of anybody doing that.
No,
Now,
I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I went towards Knight Templar, okay, and those guys are completely different from the guys who went to Scottish Rites. Okay,
Yeah, there's a Scottish Rites right there downtown Austin, and I tried walking in there one day just to see, and they stopped me pretty quick.
oh yeah, I mean there's stuff in there that no one can see, that no one's supposed to see, and things. But like I said, what I was talking about is I don't see, from the time I've been in the Masons, I don't see anything that tells me that the Masons are a bad group of people. Okay. All I see is a bunch of very rich, very wealthy, very educated people. Okay. When I mean wealthy, I mean that, they got their life together and so forth. And then there's some people in there like myself that, live paycheck to paycheck and, doing our job and doing our life and so forth. But I've never seen anything that can convince me that, the Masons is this bad organization trying to take over the world. I've never seen anything like that, from my time in there.
I mean, point of fact, I mean, if I was being honest, I haven't either. All I've heard stories from people who've gotten higher up and they were kind of surprised. But there again, it's a subsect within that community. And those cliques pop up and everything. I think the average Mason, I worked with one for years at this company I used to work with, and he was a nice guy. And I still know him. He's, he runs a security company and he's a cool dude, but I don't think he's a bad guy. But I mean, who knows when you get higher up? We don't know. I mean, I just know what I've heard people say,
Right.
And there's all kinds of stories, and nothing's going to be kept a secret.
No, my twin brother, I have a twin brother, and my twin brother's a Mason, and he's with a complete different lodge, and we've talked, and it's just like, wow, we don't do that, type stuff, because other Masons, you can talk to other Masons about things, but it's just like, he's more active than I am. I mean, he loves it, and he deals with it differently. Maybe he knows something I don't know. But it's like you said, it's a different cell that's in there, a different group of people. But I wanted to mention to you, I've got a friend who I worked with back in the 90s, and he's a Border Patrol agent in Texas, and we still get in contact, man. He's telling me, I mean, some really weird stuff that's going on down on the border there with Dogman. He said everybody knows that these things are along the border.
Oh, yeah.
And that they're told to stay away from them. And he said these things have actually killed people on the border. Literally killed them where they were eating and feeding on them.
It's happening right now. Chris James, the author Chris James, he lives down on the border, and we talked on the show. When was Chris on the show? 2 weeks ago? When was he on?
It's probably 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, because last Friday our guest didn't. She didn't make it.
Yeah.
She was a psychic. I guess she didn't see that coming. No offense, she's my friend, but I mean she's a cool lady. But she just but she was supposed to come on, and then she had something. She had to go to the church for something, to her church, literally. I think she's Orthodox. But what's crazy though, because Anthony, you're Orthodox, but what's crazy though is like the week before Chris James was on, and we were talking about stuff going on the border. And it is really weird. And there again, you have Dogman and you have these weird UFOs. It's all there at the same time happening. And probably on Tuesday, that's what we're going to talk about, is Dogman and the alien connection. So I thought, make this show the gateway to that.
Speaking of that, I'm kind of curious because I have to head out here soon. So I had a question for you, Jody. So I think we've already established, there are many alien species and they're, all types. But I was curious about like what you thought, how they interacted with dimensional beings, or how that, it affects them, or how that situation just, how would they deal with that, or how you would think they would deal with that, I guess.
How the alien would deal with,
or just like because I mean, it's say like you have these aliens from outer space, and then you have these dimensional beings that come from different dimensions. How would they interact? Like I don't. That's where I get confused, is because I don't understand that situation that well, because it doesn't make sense to me, because it basically seems like a breaching of two different worlds, basically, and it boggles me to think about like how, because I already kind of like have an understanding, like there are certain laws in space that these alien beings would have to abide by, that are enforced by probably different other alien beings and other species. But I wonder how like those laws would affect dimensional beings, or how they would account for that, I guess.
Well, here's my thing. Humans, I mean, our particular species, I'm sure there's other species out there that's humanoid, but I don't think there's not as aggressive as we are. And when it comes to laws between different alien species, when it comes dealing with us, I don't think there's a whole lot of trying to think of the right word for that, restrictions on what they can and what they can't do, because they have to observe us. And if that means they have to, you know, use science to bend light or something like that in order to come through a dimension, I can see them doing that. And it would probably be much easier for them to do that, come through a different dimension, or come through a wormhole or a black hole or something like that that shows up in the forest, or somewhere in a dark alley or something like that. I can see them doing that than actually coming from space, you know, with a ship coming down, because they don't want to be noticed when they're coming in. They don't need the attention, because they're basically here to observe us, you know, as a species. So I think they deal with it in that aspect. So I'm hoping that's what you're talking about.
Okay, so okay, kinda, and I kind of understand. It kind of cleared up something else that I was going through, because I guess by using that you would have to deal with other dimensional beings. But I was kind of viewing an alien and a dimensional being as two different entities.
Right. No, I see what you're saying there.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Are they really two different
Yeah,
species?
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. How do you know?
Are they an, you know, n-dimensional being, or are they a flesh and blood? You know, are they all able to alter themselves to be both? You would have to be interdimension in order to come through a wormhole or come through some type of doorway. I don't think they could do it as a solid being.
No.
You know, and they would have to be able to be interdimensional, but yet
I think
be
I
the
made
same.
I made the mistake of viewing it in the physical sense when I should have instead viewed it in the spiritual sense, on the outside of things. And in that sense, you could see that they would already have interactions like that. So when they come in the physical, then those would just kind of carry over, I guess. So that's where I was kind of getting it confused, because I was viewing it as the physical.
Right, but look at it this way. Look at the possibility of it this way. They're a physical being, but the interdimensional part of it could be a hologram. Okay, it could be something totally different. You know, that because their technology is going to be a lot better than ours. So maybe that's how they're able to do it. But yet, and this is a theory too, when I talk about possible holograms, but they could still feel pain. They could still feel temperature. And I talked to someone about this, that because he's the one that brought up the fact that they're not really interdimensional. It's like a hologram of them that's coming through, because their physical body can't do it.
I think
But yet they're able to feel, like I said, feel pain and, you know, temperature and things like that.
yeah, because our
So it's
actual
like simulated or something.
our actual
Right.
state is a spiritual state.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is actual government. I mean, they are actually saying, I mean, like, there's a bunch of people who've come out and said that they have said that this is a holographic illusion that we're living in. I mean, there's a bunch of people who've claimed that this is, I mean, tons of researchers have come out and said this. And they've all cited sources within our government, whether there's just shadow government or the actual government itself. They've heard both, and they've said, "Look, this is the truth. This is what this is." And even though that's what this is, that doesn't mean that everybody here is fake. It just means that we're all in this massive experimental illusion. This world may very well have been a spinoff from another universe. People don't like to believe that. They don't want to think that, because they don't want to be out of control. They don't want to feel like they don't have control. Nobody wants to feel like they're not in control, and if you feel, like you don't have control of something, well, then you go off the rails mentally. Because thinking about it and thinking about the nature of our reality is another thing that can just make you feel crazy. Mickey G says, like the Matrix. Yes, very much so. I think that movie was spawned from that idea that we're living in this sort of like holographic, agreed upon illusion. I mean, even Satan has been called the Lord of Illusion. That's what he does. And of course, Jesus calls him the God of this world. That when you stop and you think about it, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. If Christ is saying that the God of this world is Satan, I mean, what does that tell you about our world?
Right.
And people don't want to accept that. They want to think that, things are the way they are and things are a certain way. And it's like, that's not really what I'm seeing. That's not what I'm learning. That's not what I've learned. That's not what the reality that I've come to know. I think that it's a lot more, deeper than that. I mean, if you just took, like, let's just say, for example, you have all these different species that live within the Earth. If you took the planet Mars, there have been a lot of remote viewing that's been done, and there have even been scientists who have said that Mars would be very habitable within the confines of the planet, just not on the surface. And it's very rare that people actually, or beings actually live on the surface of the planets that we know. They don't actually live on the surfaces. They live within those planets. And so it would make sense that the bulk of life on this earth is within the earth, not upon the surface. And another thing too, and of course there's all this debate about how the earth really looks and what it really is. And I'm not going to sit here and tell people the earth is flat or whatever, but there is a really weird thing. And I know this is something that's always kind of puzzled me. It's, I was talking to a pilot a few years ago. I was at, having New Year's Eve, and I was at a hotel, and we were having a get together, and it was New Year's Eve, and it was a really nice place. And this guy was a pilot, and we hit it off, him and his wife and my wife, and we all talked. And, we just were watching one of the college football playoff games, and he was telling us, he was a flat earther. And so I don't know many flat earthers, but I was taken in by that. And I said, well, I'm into this, just anything, tell me, it's weird, whatever. I said, what does that entail? And he says, look, at that point, he was like, I've been a pilot for 22 years. And he was like telling me, he says, the earth it cannot be round the way that they think it is, or the way that they say it is. And he said that because we have to fly in a certain spot to go to another spot, and we have to fuel at certain, he's like, he gave me all of this stuff over the course of 2 or 3 hours. And of course, I was imbibing that night. I don't drink anymore. I haven't really. That's actually probably one of the last times I ever celebrated New Year's Eve with a drink, because I just don't like being inebriated anymore at all. And also because I get gout, and that just started because of this last.
I hate gout.
It's terrible, man.
Yes,
and it's the uric acid in your blood. There's a whole thing behind it, and I didn't until the last year get it. But I had already pretty much stopped drinking because I just don't like being out of my mind. I don't like feeling out of control, which is what we were talking about. And this pilot, though, he was telling me and Nellie like all this stuff, and it was just like it kind of was mind blowing to hear this pilot talk about it. But when I ended up interviewing a couple other people that were pilots, and it wasn't about that particular subject. It was about aliens, and different stuff. And one of them actually saw a ghost on a plane, which was pretty interesting. It was in Florida. And he was doing his checks, and he sees this, basically an entity on the plane, which was, I don't want to say it was a ghost. I don't know what it was, but he thinks it had something to do with a pilot that had died recently, but it didn't look like that, so I didn't say it was a ghost. But anyways, this gentleman, he told me, he's like, look, he goes, I asked him, I said, do you believe that the earth is round? And he says, officially, yes. And I was like, what does that mean? And he's like, well, I'm not ready to talk about it because I still have a career. And I kind of could surmise what he was getting at. He kind of told me that, yeah, he believes that the earth is not round. By saying what he did, but he didn't come out and say, well, the earth is flat. He didn't say that. And I still don't know what, because these people believe, what they believe. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you because I don't know what, or why, they believe it. I know why they believe it, but I haven't seen anything to make me doubt whatever. But I do doubt a lot of what NASA says, because NASA has been proven to be, there's just a lot left to be desired from them being at the forefront of our space program. And I don't, just having talked to now 3 different pilots who have told me, that they don't believe that the Earth is round, but like he didn't come out and say it, but that's what he was getting at. And I was like blown away by that. I was just like, what do you think of that? Like, why would these pilots believe that? And there are ship captains. I have not talked to them personally, but I have a good colleague friend of mine who has. And he told me, yeah, they believe that this, because they don't, and they would know better than anybody. So I don't know, it's a very controversial subject, and I personally am not a flat earther, not at this point, but because I haven't heard or seen enough to say, yeah, it's but it's very intriguing that pilots and ship captains and stuff would actually not believe that the Earth is round the way we think it is. Now, I did have somebody who was an astrophysicist. Literally, he believes this. One time he worked at UT years ago, like a long time ago. He was like it. And he told me, he says, point blank, like just flat out told me, he says, the world, this is what he said, Jody, and I get this. He says, the Earth looks like chewed up bubble gum. That is what he told me. He said, my brother's in the chat. My brother was there too. He told both of us. And he was the uncle of a really good friend of ours. Our friend Ronnie, that was his uncle. But you're sitting there, and Ronnie was just kind of like, yeah, my uncle's weird, and I'm thinking, well, he's an astrophysicist. I mean, he's not an idiot. So why would he say that? And of course, I didn't, at that time, I was young and didn't really care, and I didn't think about it. If I had a show back at that time, I would have been, probably all over that, but I didn't, and why would I, ask him? So I was just like, okay. So he told us that. He came into our bar and had said that. And I thought, why would this guy say that? Because the conversation there, again, was about ghosts. And he was talking about the science behind what a ghost was or is. And when he said that he didn't believe that the Earth was round, but he also didn't say he believed it was flat. And so I asked him, I said, what do you think it is? And he says, well, I believe that it looks like a piece of chewed up bubble gum. And then I didn't really go, and at that, I kicked myself because I didn't ask him any more questions. I just started hanging out and talking about, UFC or whatever it was we were talking about. We moved on from ghosts. And then later on, I was like, man, I wish I could have talked to that guy again. And I never did. He ended up passing away a couple years later, and I never got to speak to him.
I got a story for you. My brother-in-law, this was years ago, Vietnam veteran, and he was in the Marine Corps, and he was stationed at Jacksonville, a Air Naval base, Marine Corps base down there in Jacksonville. And his job was they were on choppers, and if a pilot went down, they went to go get them. Okay. And there was a pilot that went down in the Everglades. The plane malfunctioned and so forth, so he had to eject. So he got caught in a tree. So he's, given the coordinates and so forth, to the, Marines that were coming in to get him. And he said, you guys got to get here. You got to get here now. He said, there's a dinosaur. I can see it, and it's coming towards me, and it's able to get me from where I'm at in the tree. And they said they lost contact with this guy. They were never able to find his body. But my brother-in-law, he's like, he's on that chopper, and they're hearing, the communication. And he said, yeah, this guy was screaming. He was going nuts. He said, it's a dinosaur. It's a dinosaur. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy story, because, man, this is real. And we weren't allowed to talk about it, at all. They asked this question, did you hear any type of communications? They're like, no, I didn't hear nothing. But he was right there, and he heard how this guy was screaming. And when this thing got up and got him, that was the last scream they heard.
Wow.
And this is in the Everglades, so the fact that, we live in a strange world that, if aliens can exist, what's the possibility of dinosaurs, still existing in different parts of the world, like the Congo with Makilabembe, the Amazon and so forth. These are areas that hasn't changed in millions of years.
I think too, like you coming from a background of like, UFO research and years of it, and then Bigfoot and Dogman, I think it gives you a more well-rounded perspective. No pun intended. We're talking about the round,
Right?
It gives you a more spherical. No, I think that it gives you a more well-rounded, point of view. I think it's a good thing, and I've always had some really interesting conversations with you. And unfortunately, the world is the way it is, and you get people that get in there and cause problems, and do subterfuge and whatever else, and it's unfortunate in this war that I'm dealing with, that I've been dealing with, but it did do some things. It brought some of us closer together, and I'm glad that you and I touched base again, and we kind of were able to put two and two together. And I want to publicly say that I appreciate you helping me fill in the blanks for a few things, because I was being misled. And I just want to say publicly, it's not Nick. We're not talking about Nick. We're talking about someone else. I call him Mr. Potato Head. Yeah. People know who he is. That's my name for him. People know what I'm talking about. But we kind of figured it out. But it's unfortunate that's what it takes. But I'm glad that we talk again, because I didn't want to not be friends and not talk to you, and I like what you said. You're like, you knew that I was a smart guy and I would figure it out, and then I'd come around.
Well, see, that's why I never got into a pissing match with you or anything like that, because I knew what the situation was. I knew how you were being influenced, and I knew you would have figured it out.
No,
so that's why I just I'm letting you do your own thing, and I didn't trash you publicly or anything like that, and I just kind of stay out because I figured you will figure it out on your own, and you figured it out. So I mean, I never held any grudge or anger or anything towards you whatsoever, because I knew someone was playing on your emotions, and they were playing you. And
then they bragged about it too.
And they bragged about it. And they know that they knew how to get you upset. They knew how to get you going, and so forth. And it's like you'll figure it out, and that's cool. And that's what happened. So that's good. But speaking of Nick Valente, I got to tell you the story. Nick Valente and I did a conference. At a cryptid conference, right? And Giorgio from Ancient Aliens was there. I know Giorgio. I'm sorry, I do not like that guy. Okay, he's
not arrogant. Everybody's cup of tea. I can tell you that.
Yeah, he's arrogant. But we asked him about the possibility of a canine species of alien, and he just freaking went off.
Yeah, he didn't believe it.
He doesn't believe it. Because himself and anybody in his inner circle has never heard of it, so it didn't exist. And that's exactly his words, because he didn't see it, and people in his inner circle hasn't seen one, so therefore it doesn't exist. Okay, and I sat there and I said, okay, how does little grays exist? How do reptilians exist? How does Anunnaki exist? Have you or anyone in your inner circle saw them? And he couldn't answer the question. But that's a mentality of when you take these people that are like ancient alien people, who believe just because the white man didn't make it, aliens had to do it, because God forbid to sit there and think that people 1,000 years ago didn't have the technology to be able to do things that they're doing, and they were able to do it without any type of alien involvement. It's just they had better engineering skills than we do today, and it was just never followed up through generations. And that's all what it comes down to. And he didn't like that answer.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there was a Q&A he did not too long ago, and I was on there, and I didn't ask that question. I was just like, I mean, I already know the mindset of a lot of the people, like the people from Bigfoot finding whatever. They never find anything, but yeah, the same thing. You're not going to get them to even entertain that there could be a spectral type of creature. Thousands upon thousands of people see this, but to me, like all those different people from those different shows and all that, to me they're nothing. Not that they're nothing, but I don't look at them as competition or anything like that, because at some point we're going to cross the Rubicon with that, and it's going to be no going back. Because if you watch one of those shows, what is the replay value of that? Okay. People can watch my show. They can watch Christopher Garetano's show. They can watch Barton's show. They can watch anybody's show. They'll watch it over and over again. You watch that show one time and you get indigestion. You're not going to watch it again. And I'm not talking about Ancient Aliens. I'm talking about the other ones. But if you
Right.
because Ancient Aliens is pretty. It's actually pretty cool. Like as far as references and things like that, to go and look. And of course I like Graham Hancock a lot. And but you watch what's happening with him. And he's being inundated with like people just coming after him from every facet of science, because they just do not want to accept what he's saying. But that's going to happen to anybody who blazes a trail. And, when you go into these other arenas, the first thing they want to do is attack you. The first thing they're going to do is come at you and try to chop you off at the knees. And I'm proud to say that I've been in every one of these arenas, and they've tried to discredit me and say, well, this is the guy that believes in the werewolf guy, whatever. And they try to say that, and they think it's being cute or whatever. The ghost community tried to do that too. And I was like, all you can do, and I'm going to say this, and this at the risk of sounding arrogant in front of 600 people in here, I'm going to say this. You just have to do it better than them. You have to outwork them, you have to outsmart them, and you just have to do it better than they do. And that's all you can do. And it's hopefully the people that watch and listen want to learn will go to where the knowledge is, and they will drink from the waters of knowledge. Those people all have special interests that back them up. I would say 99.9% of scientists agree with whatever pays them. It's the same thing. I mean, and you and I both know there's a very, very well-known science researcher, whatever you want to call him. He's kind of well-known in the Bigfoot community, and everybody looks to him as like the guru. He has done some good things for the Bigfoot community. But by the same token, once he got them to a certain point, he just, got out of the wagon and set up shop, and that was it. And I don't believe that he is correct. I think that he's gone to a certain point, and there is nothing else that will ever come from him. And I say this right here on my show. I think that there is nothing else that he will ever provide for our community at all. Nothing. Not a damn thing. And all the people from the cast of running around with your shirt off, screaming at ghosts, running around, and then the running around the woods, banging on trees and giving them donuts, the Bigfoot show. It's a TV show. Okay, you don't even need those shows now. I mean, you can go on Tubi, you can go on Amazon Prime, you can make a documentary and do whatever you want, and you can get thousands upon thousands of views, people to watch it, whatever. People watched my conference through the internet after we came back from it. We sold 170. What is it like? I don't know. Us and Christopher Jordan.
Yeah, I don't know how many.
We sold a bunch of people to go watch the conference, whatever. And we didn't even advertise hardly at all. So imagine if we did, and if we were just, and this wasn't just a part-time thing for me. There's the sky's the limit, but you can't. Jason Broussard, yeah, pretty much. And so whenever you go, and you watch these people. It's a fading thing, and I promise you, 110% people, it will fade away into obscurity, and eventually, because there is no replay value. Who would be brain dead enough to sit there and watch reruns of those shows? I couldn't even I can barely choke down an episode of one of those shows, much less look at a rerun of it.
Well, here's the thing.
I mean, it's terrible.
You take the show Paranormal Witness, The Wolf Pack. And I know this for a fact because I've actually talked to people at Travel Channel. They'll sit there and tell you that is their highest rating show every time it's on.
Oh yeah,
Every time it's on. Now,
absolutely.
do they know? Do they think that Dogman stuff is out there and they believe it? Yes, they do, but it's not time for it yet because I'll tell you this. About three or 4 years ago, that we had a contract signed with A&E to do a show on Dogman. We filmed 4 episodes. Okay, we got really good thermal imaging of stuff. We got some good audio. We had some really good stuff. Okay, so when it went back and the people at A&E sat and watched it, okay, it scared them so bad that they canceled the show and paid us out on our contracts because they felt someone would get killed in the field by one of these things. I'm not kidding. This is truth. And they were so afraid that they would end up losing money in a lawsuit because someone was killed by one of these things, just from the evidence that we got for those 4 episodes, which A&E still has custody of because we were not allowed to have any of it, but we saw it. We had thermal imaging of something going from all 4s on up to 2 legs walking. Okay, we had some of the best evidence out there, but what the A&E did, hold on a minute, my microphone came out. What A&E did was they took this material and they went to the U.S. Forestry Service and asked the U.S. Forestry Service about this animal. And the U.S. Forestry Service sat and told them, "Oh, this thing it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist," and all this other stuff. You don't want to sit there and be laughed at for all this stuff. So they knew that there was something that was out there. So about a year or so ago, maybe a year and a half, Travel Channel came to us about doing a show. Well, there was a big fight in there with Travel Channel on wanting. Travel Channel just wanted to do Bigfoot stuff. That was their thing. Out of the 5 executives, 4 wanted to do a Dogman one. 1 did not want to do it. Now 1 was the higher up, and he wanted to make the decision. They even had one of their executives actually seen a Dogman, actually seen one with his family. They were on a trail, and his daughter says, "Dad, look, there's a wolf eating something." And they looked over, and it was a wolf eating a deer. Okay, so they're standing there watching this thing. He said this thing stood up and turned around, looked at him. It was standing on 2 legs, the wolf was. And it started to snarl at him. So they know this stuff is out there. But what they're so afraid of is that the people cannot handle the truth about an apex predator that can actually take human life. That's what they're afraid of. They just don't think anybody can handle that type of truth.
I think that's the show that I was on. These Woods Are Haunted, or no? What is it called? Was it Terror in the? No, which one was it?
It was These Woods Are Haunted.
These Woods Are Haunted. With Michael Sheen. Yeah, Michael Sheen, good guy, and him and his buddy Rogers from London, and Michael's from Wales. And when I was on that show, I provided them with several witnesses to that particular season, and then Michael wanted to do my show, which we had already recorded it and put it on the podcast. It was called what is it called? Church of the Forgotten.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a Dogman episode, but it was it was pretty scary, and it was the first one on the first episode, the first set, whatever. And I was apprehensive about doing it, and I tell you why. Because I didn't really want anything to do with being a part of television in that sense, because I don't believe that that's where the future is headed. I don't believe that that's where it's headed, and I don't want to be known as the guy that had that experience. That's an experience that happened to me, but the most profound thing that's ever happened to me started when I was 15. But that particular experience, I think, was probably right up there with as far as being terrifying. It was probably one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened to me. And it happened to multiple people who were, you know, we had several guards. I mean, what was it, 6 guards, Anthony? How many were it? Was it 6 guards we went through?
Yeah, I think so.
So we went through like 6 different guards who had this, you know, who saw something at that location, and you know, and so one of the guards who works with us is a good friend of mine. He came on the show and did it, you know, and we could have had another guy, but they just said they only needed 2 people, and it was a terrifying thing. And you're on TV and you're seeing yourself on TV, whatever, but it's just like being on YouTube or whatever. I don't look at that as like the pinnacle of anything for me. I don't, in fact, that was just kind of like a sideline I don't even care about. You know, people find me through that episode. They'll be like, hey, I saw you on the TV, whatever. But that was more as a favor, doing that as a favor to them to get on there and do it because they needed witnesses and they liked that episode. And when Sheehan approached me, I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. I'll do it, whatever. But it almost didn't happen because something weird happened in the studio while we were recording. And I remember the makeup girl just getting up and leaving in the middle of it, which was weird. And I look at that situation there as like, you know, people thinking, well, that's you know, like a big deal or whatever to be doing that. But to me, it's not a big deal at all. And it's not where I want to be. And I was really worried about being on that show and people relating to me through that show rather than my show and the work that I've done and whatever. Because yes, an experiencer, yes. Somebody who's had things happen to them, yes. But that's not who I am or what I am. And I want people to know me through my work, through my books, through my show, not because I was on some TV show that you know, where I admitted that I was scared, you know, and I had something happen. And luckily for me, that didn't take center stage for me. I just don't. I'm guarded against that. And I don't think I'd ever want to have a show on one of those networks. Nothing against the networks, like I said. I just think we're heading in a different direction, and the direction that I want to head in will be coming up probably this year. I'll be doing a lot of different projects, and hopefully maybe we can work together because I am going to be setting my sights on doing a documentary that's going to be something that I would like to get put on Tubi or Amazon. I don't know yet how that's going to play out. But I got a couple different projects going, one with Eric Palacios and David Weatherly, and then the other one with Barton Nunley, and probably it's going to be with Chris Garitano. But we will be in touch, Jody. I'm going to let you run right now, but I appreciate you coming on the show and talking to the audience. It's always a pleasure. You know, and I'm glad that over the last few months we've been able to reconnect and talk, and it's been good because we've been friends for a long time, and I publicly apologize for what happened because, you know, I got played, and sometimes you do, you know, and I'm very not happy with that individual, and he's a part of this whole cabal that their whole Operation Takedown or whatever they want to say it is, it didn't work, you know, and it's not going to work, and I have a feeling that we're all going to be around for a long time. And eventually those people will just be a footnote. You know, just like I think a lot of these shows and all this other stuff, people want real. They want the real deal Holyfield. That's not it. And those people that are doing what they're doing, they're burning themselves out. And eventually all those people will fade out of this whole deal. And I do believe that there's a future, you know, where people like you that have a very well-rounded, you know, and that's important. Somebody had actually said something one day when me and you weren't talking for that period of time, and I said, look, I was like, I don't care to talk about that or go into that. And they said, well, you know, he started out in this community, then that community, and blah, blah, blah. And this is what I said. At one time, I had a different opinion of this. But now, knowing what I know, I said, dude, wouldn't you rather be able to speak 3 languages instead of 1? Wouldn't you rather be able to be well-versed in multiple fields instead of 1? And so that was my response to that. Whereas, like I said before, I had a different opinion of it at one time. I thought, you know, this is your field. You stay in that field. Then when the idea about the show came out, I was like, you know what? I need to be able to say what I got to say And there are going to be people who are going to come out, and they're not going to like it. They're not going to like that I'm going into what they consider to be their wheelhouse in their field. They don't like that I'm talking about ancient civilizations. They don't like that I'm talking about UFOs and alien abduction. They don't like that I'm going into Bigfoot or Dogman or ghosts, whatever. But we have to find the answers, and the only way to do that is to go, and you're going to step on some toes, and unfortunately, to make an omelet, the proverbial, you got to break a few eggs. That's just the way it is, the truth.
Oh yeah, yeah, and people are not, and that's the problem. That these fields just don't get along.
Yeah, they don't see eye to eye.
They don't see eye to eye, and and like you said, it goes back. Everybody has their own clique and stuff, and that's dangerous to the community.
Mm-hmm. It's unhealthy.
Stuff. No, it's not. So, yeah. Well, you guys keep in touch and keep me posted, and we'll get something happening here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'll be calling on you again soon, Jody. Thank you for coming on. That was something that I had always wanted to bring my audience, and I appreciate you bringing it on and bringing your input.
I appreciate it for letting me come on. I had a good time.
Yeah, absolutely, Jody, and thank you for that.
All right, you guys have a good one.
All right, good night. Bye.
Good night. Bye.
So that's Jody Cook, folks, and as surprised as some people are, Jody and I have been talking for quite some time. We did get to the bottom of some things, and we had a long talk, and I thought that it was important that I say it publicly, then I apologize, because I do think that this person who, he's not, and like I said, it's not Nick Valenti, but it was somebody very close to Nick, and Nick has corrected that mistake, and I appreciate that. And Jody and I think we all kind of got, we got played. The guy played on our sympathy. He used my friendship with Linda Godfrey against me to go at someone who was, messing with Linda. And unfortunately, I trusted this individual, and I helped get him in a position where he shouldn't have been. And then, of course, he's done damage to multiple people. Doesn't mean you stop praying. You still pray for the people and whatever. And we're at the 2-hour, 30-minute mark. I don't know. What do you think? We have time for a story? I know we're supposed to cut it short tonight, but I mean, Anthony was like, I got to tell you, I hate the show. I hate you.
It's not that I hate the show or
let's
you.
Just cut it short.
I just hate everything.
Wow. Okay. So so you're like that song, Typo Negative, hate is for all. No matter what you believe, we don't believe in you.
I guess.
Yeah, that's the song, right? That's you hate everyone. We hate everyone.
I never heard it. Peter Steele's voice is weird.
Yeah, I mean it's not. I used to like Squid. That was like one of his favorite bands.
Yeah.
So if you rode with him, he was going to play it.
Uh-huh.
It's like me with what was it called? Dark Tranquility. You ever heard of Dark Tranquility? Where you going to if you play it? Because I used to love that band. It was pretty good. We want stories, yeah, and you're going to get stories on Sunday and again on Tuesday. One other thing I wanted to do, and this is the main reason I want to call my friend real quick and see if she's up. She was just in the chat, and I want to give her a quick plug, and then I'll give you a story or an encounter. And people are like, stop calling them stories. That sounds fake when you say that. I sound like an old sea captain. No, I what do you want to call it? I mean, I just say story because that's someone's story, People correct me, Okay, let me see here. It doesn't work. I'll send you the information real quick. Who the heck is that? There it is right there.
Hello.
Hey, Sibylla.
Hey, Josh. How are
I'm
you?
good. Hold on one second. Are you okay?
Yeah.
You decided to drop your phone for the 8th time?
My
Sorry,
phone's
he's
off
trying to
itself.
interrupt us, but we're not going to let it happen. We're not going to let him win.
You were too busy gulping down water. I didn't
I'm
interrupt
drinking
nothing.
water. I don't gulp it down. I'm not a child. Okay.
Or whatever.
So Sibylla, that's my nephew. He's unruly, but you have a show, and I wanted to because you're on YouTube now, and you're trying to get it monetized. So do you want to plug it while we have a chance here?
Yeah, well, I started a channel a little over a year ago, just interviewing witnesses that I have done witness sketches for. And I just uploaded Matt Imch's video this evening, and I hope everybody goes and watches it because his sketches are some of the most terrifying that I think I've ever done.
I don't think I've seen those.
No, because it just premiered today at 7.
Wow. I didn't even know that. I know that then Blondes and Booze came on, and I had to apologize to them because I had to start early tonight because I have a lot of work to do. We're very short-handed right now. Nobody wants to work.
Yeah.
I mean, the
No,
job entails just staring at lumber, but they don't want to do it. And they're like, it sounds complicated. We're like, no, not really. You just get paid way too much, and you just sit there, and people can't do it. But
right.
it's the world we live in.
So my channel just you actually get to see the real witnesses telling their story, and then you get to see the witness sketches that we created together, illustrating what they saw.
Wow.
So yeah, so it's really, I love watching witnesses. I love watching their body language and things like that. So
Am I going to
you get
come
to
on and
see-
tell my story?
Oh, absolutely, I'd love to.
That'd be great. And then you got to come back on and talk because I overtalked you last time, and that's a habit I have. I get excited and I start talking too much, and you're just sitting there, and I'm embarrassing myself, and people are like, "Shut up, dude!" And I keep going, and I admit it. I'm sitting here admitting it. I'm an honest person. At least I tell the
No,
truth.
you were fine.
Yeah.
And your show with Jody tonight was fabulous.
Yeah. Jody and me go way back, and so your channel, like you just need what 250 subscribers. That's all you need?
No, I have the subscribers. It's the watch hours.
Watch hours. So,
Yeah.
folks, go in there because we got 566 people right now. When you leave here, if you have time, or tomorrow, whenever you get time, go check out Sibylla so she can get the watch hours she needs, and
That would
then
be
she can get monetized. Help her out. Do it as a personal favor to me. Say as a Christmas present for me, because you don't have to get me anything. But but if you want to, I definitely need a new Ford Explorer. That's up to you. That's up to you. That's something small. You don't have to get the jet plane. Will come later. Okay, just the Ford Explorer. I'm not asking for lots. One gift.
And if you happen to have about like 10 to 20 acres of land lying around that you could spare, that'd be great for us too.
And we don't want no bottom land.
Preferably in the Central Texas area.
Yes, please.
Yeah, if you just find it somewhere, you buy it for us and just slide it our way.
For just $1,000 a day, you can help us have a lot of fun. These poor people, they slave over a hot microphone, and So tell us a little bit about your sketches, because you did the sketches for my books, which is how I met Jerry Williams, because Jerry was like, "What are y'all doing using those sketches? Those belong to you." And so me and Barton started arguing with him, and then I argued, and then I said, "Look, what are we arguing about here?" And Charles, he's such a nice guy, and Charles is like, "Oh, it don't matter, And so Jerry knows that Charles was a good guy. He thought we were taking advantage of him, but that was your sketches, and you did the cover art for both of my books.
Right.
Yeah.
And those are witness sketches too, which were fabulous. Yeah.
Charles Hamill was the Bigfoot one at the dam in Oklahoma, and then the other one was Joe Barger. Yeah, pretty amazing. But that one looked so much like what I had seen that I was working on that with you, and I was on the phone with Barton and Ken and everybody, and we were having a little powwow, and I said, that's what it looks like. I'm going to use that one. And they were just like, yeah, that sounds good. Definitely had a lot of people that were very instrumental in helping me, giving me advice. You were doing the sketches. People were helping. I have to give credit also to my godson Alec for the Bigfoot book, because they were both being released at the same time. And so you did the Dogman sketches and he did the Bigfoot. But you guys were invaluable, and I appreciate it very much, and I'll always remember that. So
Oh, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity of working with your witnesses. I really
Mm-hmm.
enjoyed that. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. There's awkward silence. I was waiting for you to speak, but because I don't want to do what I did last time and overspeak you. So let me ask you a question real quick.
Sure.
When can we get you back on and talk? Because we need to get you on the podcast too, which has a lot more listeners. I mean, when are you going to be available?
Actually, anytime. I mean, just whenever's good for you guys.
Good. So then we'll and this time we won't overtalk you. Or I say we. I'm sorry. I was the one overtalking you. But we will make sure that we give you that opportunity. So I'm going to let you run. I just wanted to bring you on real quick and tell them the name of your show and where they can find it and everything about it real quick.
Okay, it's called Sketching Encounters. It's on YouTube. And I think I have 5 episodes up, and they're kind of long form. And like I've been working with Matt since July. That's how long it takes for me to create the sketches. It's difficult work, and it's very emotional, as you know. Matt's experience was so traumatic. So we can, we just work on little snippets at a time and sketches one, at a time. And anyway,
awesome.
if people just, and it's, we try to do I'm committed to doing the most accurate work possible so that witnesses really get the image out of their head and onto the paper, so other people get to see exactly what they saw. And it's not my imagination, it's not their imagination, it's their experience that people are getting to see. So, and that's my commitment to them.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, and I don't charge witnesses for that either, because they didn't ask for these experiences. So I don't feel it's right to do that.
Well, you're definitely one of the nicest people in this field. I met you in person year before. Was it? No, wait, when was it? Was it the Jefferson conference at what's his name?
Was that last year?
Last year?
Yes, it was. It was like a year and a half now.
Yeah, a year and a half. And it was what's his name? Craig Woolheater's conference.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Craig was at this last conference, and you couldn't make it. Your mother was ill, and that's unfortunate. But it really wanted you to be there. And if we have it this year, it's going to be in Austin area, so you're going to be able to make it. Hopefully, I hope you come.
Awesome. Yes, I would love to. Yeah.
So, folks, Sibylla Irwin, go check her out. That's the coordinates. We have it. We have it pulled up. You have it pulled up.
Yeah. The link to Sibylla's channel is pinned at the top of the chat, and I'll also just put it in the chat if you just scroll a little bit upwards. So we got 556 people in here. She should have hundreds of new subscribers after this one. So just click on that link and go over there, hit subscribe.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Josh, for doing that. I deeply appreciate it.
No problem. You've been a treasure to this community. And so, yeah, anything we can do to help folks, paratroopers, go and check it out. Give her some listening hours, folks. Check out the interview with Matt. It's going to be unique because it's got something that, that he hasn't done before, and that's the sketches. And I need to see that. I got to check that out. I will be watching that tomorrow while I'm in my study, slaving away on whatever this book is it's turned into. I can't figure it out yet. I'm like, I'm going to write this, and then it became something else. And then, like last time, it split into 2 books. Now it's doing that again. But we'll see what happens. I might need you to sketch. Can you do me some UAP sketches?
Absolutely.
I might need that done because I know it's not cryptids, but, it's all related. So.
No, yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah. I will be in your neck of the woods, and I've already confirmed this with Ken and Ann. I will be there, and I'm saying this, publicly, whatever, but I will be there New Year's Eve in San Antonio, so I'd like you to join us for dinner. You got to come.
Awesome. I think, my mom usually has a party, just a small family party, but
we'll go crash it. We're just going to show up. Hey, we're her friends that believe in Bigfoot. What's up? Where's Bigfoot at? You're like, I don't know these people. Please leave. Where are the fireworks at and the booze?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we always have fireworks.
Sibylla's my
booze.
friend. She drew pictures of werewolves. Go sit in somebody's lap. Do you believe in werewolves, sir? They're like, sir, can you get off of me? You weigh as much as a werewolf.
They're my family. They know.
Well, they're not going to be like, Sibylla, what is this? What is the meaning of this?
That's
you're
awesome.
I knew there was going to be trouble when you started reading those Bigfoot books, Fate Magazine, and that other garbage.
Oh, they know. They
No.
know.
And you know what, though? There is one thing you do that you could teach me, and that is how to shoot a bow and arrow. My wife is trying to get me to do it, and I've only done it one time in my friend Ronnie's garage, and I shot through one of his dad's taxidermied bobcats,
Oh dear.
and he took the blame for it, and I was never the same. I only did it one time. I only shot one time in my life. I'd like to go back and do it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
No, I saw pictures of you doing it. I was like, dude, Sibylla's a badass. What is this? You know, I was like, that's awesome. My wife used to do it too, and my wife's like, you know, she could do all these things. She's like, let's go ride a motorcycle. I'm like, I've done it one time. I went 28 feet up in the air. I say 20. I don't know how. It was over 20 feet. I'm just picking a number at random, and I fell in a ditch and cut my leg, and I never got back on one again.
Yeah.
You know, I just convinced that it would kill me if I ever did. That motorcycle was
archery's-
just.
Archery's safer.
Yeah. Unless you really can't aim it at yourself. You can't go like and turn, you know.
Right?
But we'll see. We'll see. I did almost get like we were at pinballs and we were throwing the axes and one of them bounced back and flew between me and Nellie and I was like, "Whoa, was that supposed to happen?" And the girl that was looking at her phone, she's like, "Oh no, that's not supposed to happen. I don't know. That's never happened before in 2 years." And I was like, well, it just did. And it flew back at me, and, you know, and she was like, that's crazy. And she kept looking at her phone. She didn't care. I almost died. She was just like, whatever. You look like you could take it, you know. But hopefully the archery thing will work out. We got to get together and we got to do that.
That sounds
All
fun.
right.
So and if we're going to be in town in San Antonio probably for a couple of days, but Tina and Maddie are going to come. And we're going to go and be down there, and it's going to be like either the day before New Year's Eve or New Year's Eve, whatever. But I'd like for you, if you could, one of those days, join us for dinner.
Oh, I would love to. Absolutely. Y'all just let me know.
I will, and we can talk
Okay.
shop and maybe get together and do some collaborating or whatever.
Okay, sounds great.
All right, Sibylla, I'll see you.
All right. Thank you so much, Josh.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Good night.
All right, bye. So Sibylla Irwin, folks, she's a very kind person. I mean, I enjoyed, we had an after party. Wasn't wild and crazy or anything like that, but Daniel Jones was there, another great guy, one of my favorite people. I think Christopher was there, Jordan, Lyle Blackburn was there, you know, Ken Gerhard, Adam Davies. Well, we had a great time. We had a big get together after party at the Jefferson Conference. Barton and me had a blast. It was me, Barton, Bettina. Larry was there. Larry Fisher, he showed up. And, of course, Craig Woolheater was the host. And, yeah, Craig showed up at my conference, and we had a great time, you know, with him and Lyle. He stayed at Lyle's haunted house. I need to ask Craig if he saw anything. Did you see any ghosts? Are you listening, Craig? Did you see any ghosts? Tell me if you did. Craig's probably not going to tell me. He don't want to believe in that. But he does, because he lives in a haunted town. And I think he does a UFO conference every year now, too. So if you're ever in Texas, you know, that time of year, he does those conferences. And he had invited me to speak at that particular conference. I know Daniel went. Daniel Jones is somebody I'm going to be working on the UAP project with me. And Nick Redfern. He's a good friend of Nick Redfern's. These names, you'll get to know these people if you stick around with the show long enough. James Bartley's another guy I'm going to have. And then I'm going to be trying to get Paul Wallace. If you're listening, Paul, over there in Australia, I'm going to have you on the show too. He just doesn't know it yet. He told me to let him know, but that was like 6 months ago, and I'm like, he had his third book out. Mm-hmm. Escaping Eden, was it Escaping Eden? Or
I think so.
yeah, but it was, and I thought that was going to be a trilogy, but he's writing another one. So he's a machine. He's going. Hopefully, I'll get mine out. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. We're going to talk about aliens and Dogman. Probably on Tuesday is going to be that episode we're going to record. We haven't recorded it yet. It kind of snuck up on us because we've had so much going on, and Christmas has been a real Just we had, imagine if you're drowning and then someone throws you a Christmas tree. That's kind of what happened to us. You're just like, they're like, here you go, sir. And then you're falling into the water with the Christmas tree on top of you. And then Simon and Garfunkel, hello, darkness, my old friend. It's Christmas time again. And then the lights, the Christmas tree, and you are freezing. And then that's it. But that's kind of what happened to us this year. We got caught flat-footed, and we're just like, oh, what do we do? We got all these projects and things going on, not to mention the board game. We got put on hold, everything, because we had to do Christmas. And every year we do Christmas for a lot of different people, and it's very important because a lot of these people don't have Christmas without us. And so it is our pleasure to help them and their children to do the things that they got to do. And I do this every year. It's just what I do. It's what Anthony does. We've been doing this for a long time. And, we're more gooder than most people. We're probably more gooder than you all. I'm just telling you. I'm a good person for saying that. I want you to know that I'm more gooder, and I spread the more gooderness. So, but here's what happened. One of the people that I've met years ago through a family member, he is now deceased. He's no longer around. But I met him years ago, and he had a Bigfoot experience in Tennessee, which isn't surprising considering that it was near the LBL. But what was interesting about his Bigfoot encounter was that he was out with a team of people looking for ghosts, and they had the EVPs and everything. This was in 2016, a year before he died. I'm telling you, they were absolutely stunned at what happened. And not only did they have this Bigfoot encounter. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Anna. Or who's that? Who said that? Nina. Nina Sinclair says, you're the goodest. Yes, I am the goodest. Definitely the goodest. But what happened was, and this guy's name's Hank, family friend, that was friends with my mom's cousin for years and years. What's crazy, though, is that when he told me this story, I had no idea. And it was a very brief encounter. They were in Tennessee, and like I said, he's a friend of my mom's cousin. She's like, I know somebody who had a really, really, really weird encounter, and it involves ghosts and Bigfoot, and it's right up your alley. And so when I interviewed him before he passed away, I got his story, and I had it in my files, and I just went and I looked. And when I was looking through all these different files, it was just like a one-off, and shouldn't have been a one-off, but it was. And he made a joke to one of those, those machines that read what is it called? Oh my gosh, my mind just blinked out. When you ask it a question, it does and it does that, and it says a word and another word. I forgot the name of it.
Spirit box or the
Spirit Box. Jason Bland does that on his show all the time. The Spirit Box, and he asked this question, and he said, when am I going to die? Now, who the heck would say that? The Spirit Box did two things really weird. One, it said Bigfoot. Like the Spirit Box said that, Bigfoot, behind you. Right? Then it said next year, fall. So in between that time, and, luckily I listened to the family member who is now also deceased, but she, and now her son said, hey, did you ever find that interview? And I said, no, I don't know what I did with it, but let me look it up. Let me look for it, whatever. And so I had all the notes from it. And so I read it. And this is when I was looking for the Dogman UFO stuff. And he had a UFO encounter when he was a child. Here's what's really interesting about this whole thing. He thinks that when he was a kid, he had an abduction scenario that led to him being able to experience ghosts. Now, not necessarily seeing them, but if they were around, he's like me. He knows they're around. He can feel them. Sometimes he sees them, or he did, and sometimes he could hear them. So when I was, what the heck was that? Did you hear that?
Yeah, it sounded like a car horn.
Yeah, it was a weird car horn. But so whenever I was reading the notes on this particular time I talked to this guy, I thought it was very interesting that he had a Bigfoot experience. They turned around, they see this black mass with red eyes. Now, they didn't really get a good look at what this creature was. They didn't really get a good look at the size that was massive. They couldn't hardly even tell. Like when it would move, they knew it was huge, but they didn't know what it was. But the spirit box said, Bigfoot behind you. Now, some people are going to be skeptical and say, let me tell you something. That could have been a demon pretending to be a Bigfoot. It very well could have. But the fact that it said that, and then it told him next fall you were going to be gone, and then he had a heart attack. He was out hiking. He was in pretty good shape. Everybody thought he was.
Yeah.
And so he was thinking, oh no, I'm going to get cancer. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get that. And when I talked to him on the phone, he was kind of laughing. He was just like, yeah, I'm not going to die. I mean, this is crazy. But then he died. He passed away in November, which was really weird because that was the prediction, right? But here's what's even weirder. When he first had his UFO encounter, whatever, the first time it happened, he was 8 years old. He was living right here in Central Texas. And his dad's family was from Tennessee. That's why he moved back there when his dad got ill. And he was working here in the cotton gins. He ran some of the gins, whatever. And he had told me, he says, I had seen a Bigfoot when I was out there that last year, whatever he was telling me. This is right before he passed away. And then he said, I've also had UFO encounters, multiple UFO encounters since I was a kid. And so when he got a chance to leave Tennessee, he went to work in Mississippi, I believe, and then he ended up in Texas. He got transferred here. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him. And he actually dated somebody that my mom's really close with. It's not technically her cousin, but I call her that. I call her my aunt, and my mom called her her cousin. She passed away years ago, but she was really good friends with this guy. And then she actually passed away before he did. She's like, you got to get in touch with this guy. And she gave me his phone number. A couple years later, I finally get in touch with him. And he tells me this story, about what had happened. And so she said, you got to get in touch with this guy because of the alien abduction stuff that he had told her, right? But when I talked to him, he says, I got an even weirder story. And then that's when he told me the whole thing that happened. But when he was a kid, he really believes that one time when he was sitting in his room, and this is probably why this was in that same folder, he saw a wolf head. Now, he didn't say he saw a dog man. He never told me he saw a werewolf. He just said that he saw the silhouette of a wolf-headed being. And an hour later, unconscious, he woke up on what he thinks was like a craft. And it was just a standard procedure with the Greys. So he asked me, he says, I know that you and I have been around the same areas. He's like, and I've heard stories of this werewolf-type creature from our town that we lived in. It's not his hometown, but he claimed it. I told him, I said, do I think it's connected? Yes, I do. And now Jody comes on the show tonight, Jody Cook, and he starts talking about the connection. And I'm going to get deeper into that because I think there's a big, big connection there because a lot of people will see UFOs in the same area they see Bigfoot and Dogman. And that is undeniable. You cannot separate them and say they are not connected because why would they be seen in the same areas? There's a power plant right here in LaGrange and the one in Rockdale too, same thing. People would see Bigfoot, Dogman on the highway, and then they would see UFOs. Anthony, you and I were just out there in LaGrange talking to our friend, what's his name, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
Nick. And he owns a dealership there, Ford dealership. We ate dinner. We talked to 2 or 3 of the locals at the restaurant there, and they had stories to tell us. One of them had a story of a chupacabra. Another one was an UFO. And then we had another one was a ghost haunted house. Creepy, creepy stories. And these people were all locals, and they live, guess what? They live close to that power plant. So why would it happen there, right? You tell me. And there's no connection at all? No. I think there is. I think that is. And I think that this guy, I think Hank, what he saw, I think that he saw something in that window when he was a kid. And I think that it was part of this phenomena. I really do. What the connection is, we're just going to have to keep pushing and try to figure it out. And someday maybe we'll come up with the answers. But when a spirit box tells you, hey, you're going to die next year, and it happens, you know. And thank goodness my mom's cousin, my aunt, what I call her my aunt, she really wasn't, but she told me about him. And she said, and actually she dated him, but she told me, she says that he's got some wild stories about UFOs, you know, and claimed to have seen a dogman. Well, she didn't call it a dogman. She said a werewolf. And when I talked to him, though, he didn't call it a werewolf. He didn't call it a dogman. He just said it was a wolf's head, the silhouette of a wolf's head in the window. And then he had an abduction scenario, which he had been having since he was like a smaller child, and he was little. But that happened when he was 8. So he says, or he started being abducted when he was 8. That happened when he was like 10. But here's the crazy thing. How does one person have all these encounters? And people will say, well, that's impossible. I don't believe that. But that happens all the time. You talk to people all the time who have multiple facets of the paranormal, which I call paranormal. Now, I talked to a UFO researcher. Well, I mean, I guess you want to call him a researcher. He thinks he's a researcher, let's put it that way. It wasn't one of my favorite conversations. I thought the guy would be a little bit more forthcoming, but he was just like real guarded about his research and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, I don't need it. I don't care, whatever. But he's like, don't you deal with paranormal? And I said, yes. Then why are you contacting me? And so I told this very arrogant and conceited person, I just told him flat out, I said, well, I thought I could talk to you because it's all paranormal. No, it's not. This has nothing to do with ghosts, and I don't believe that crap. I said, who's talking about ghosts? I said, I called you to talk to you about alien abduction. We have one of the same witnesses, which he claims is his. How do you claim a person? This isn't slavery. And so he says, well, I've been talking to that guy for a long time. I said, first of all, that was a lie. I said, no, you haven't. You've been talking to him for like 2 weeks. We first corresponded 5 or 6 years ago. I'm like, okay, and then you didn't respond. And then 2 weeks later, you wanted to talk to this person when he started talking to me. So I tried to reason with this guy, and he tried to give me this big old speech about how, basically, he didn't say it in so many words, but he said, yeah, you should kind of just stay in your lane. Don't you like believe in like ghosts and fairies and werewolves? And I said, they're all the same. It's all the same stuff. No, it's not. And I will never work with someone from the ghost community. He's like, I listened to somebody from the ghost community one time and it got me in trouble. I don't know what he's talking about. I guess the person from the ghost community got him to rob a bank or something. I don't know. How did you get in trouble? He never elaborated. I don't know what kind of trouble he's talking about. But I will say this. I told him, I said, the word paranormal now has become synonymous with ghosts. So whenever I tell somebody that I do a show about the paranormal, they think that I'm just all about ghosts. That is some spooky haunting stuff, whatever, and that's it. To me, the word's been hijacked. And I don't agree with that. I think that the paranormal is anything that is not of the norm, mundane world that we live in. I look at it like that. And I look at it from a perception, you got to have perception. The lens that you have to look at it. That our world is not what we think it is. Our world is not what it seems. For all intents and purposes, Hank was a guy who was just a country dude, born and raised in the South. He had worked in cotton gins his whole life. He was a very, very, very genuine and nice guy. I have no reason to believe he ever lied. And I had damn near forgotten about those encounters. I've had a whole treasure trove buried in there of information, stuff that I had collected years and years ago, like before the show ever started. And it happens all the time. I mean, because I've been doing this and talking about this for 30 freaking years. Now, if you took one of his encounters, it's pretty amazing. But when you take them all together, you see a pattern of an experiencer. Was it a mistake to ask the spirit box when he was going to die? I don't think he really cared, because he didn't live his life by the social constructs and confinement that we live. He was very open, and he lived as a free spirit. He never owned much, and he was open about that. He's like, dude, I'm just a rolling stone, and wherever I lay my head is my home. And I asked him, I said, are you worried? This was a few months before he passed. I said, are you worried that this prediction could come true? He says, I don't care. I welcome it. Let it happen. He's like, I'm almost 70. He's like, it is what it is. He was in really good shape. He would go swimming, he'd run, he'd hike. But when old Grim Reaper comes, you got to be prepared. And the most important question, and not to preach ad nauseum on whatever, but I said, are you right with God? He says, in what way? I said, have you accepted Christ as your Lord and Savior? He says, oh, yeah. I said, well, then you're good to go. And he did. But before he went, he gave me that information. And I may get a little further into the details of what happened to him that day when he got abducted. It wasn't just that simple, cut and dry. He did see something when he was on that craft. And it was a standard procedure from the Greys, but there was a visitor there too. And we'll talk about that. But for now, I'm going to head out. I would say don't play with a spirit box. It's not my thing. I don't mess with those or Ouija boards. But if you do, don't ask it when you're going to pass away. Because you may not be as strong as Hank and be able to just say, you know what, this is what it is. I'm not worried about when I'm going to pass. I'm fine. I'm living on the edge, whatever. You may be a little more worried. I personally don't want to know. I just want to take each day as it comes, take it as a blessing. I thank God every day for my life, and I thank him for my salvation. He sent his son. Everybody knows Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And you do what you want to do. You live your life how you want to live it. But just remember that life is fleeting, and we have a very short window here on this earth, and we're just passing through. And like Hank, one day we will not be here. He may be here in some form or another, but he's not here in the flesh. Right? And so when you're not in the flesh, you're in the presence of God. You're in his realm, basically. And you better have your heart right with him. So anyway, I thank everybody for tuning in tonight. Thank you to my guest, Jody Cook. Thank you to my other brief guest, Syllabilla Irwin, but she'll be back, and we'll have them both. We're going to talk, and we're going to do all kinds of things. God willing, okay, we're going to be around, and I'm going to get these books read. Thank you for that donation. Who's this? Adrian at Walking...
Unalived.
Clever. Thank you for that donation, and we appreciate it. Whatever gets donated for the next couple of weeks, until the end of the year, I'm probably just gonna go either to pay for the food drive, to get it, or pay it back, pay the money back off for the food drive. Thank you for this opportunity you've given me, folks, with this platform. I can do a lot of good. I can help a lot of people, and I appreciate it. Don't worry, because Sunday we got a whole bunch of ghost stories to talk about on her channel. Now, somebody asked me the other day, they said, Wolf, you're giving all these people these, to go watch all these other channels. Isn't that going to take away from yours? I said, maybe. But the bottom line is, I'm not going to tell you to go check them out if they're not giving you good information that's going to help you and you're going to grow. That's what this is all about. This isn't about, whatever. I don't look at this as a business. I look at this as a community. We're all going to grow together. So when I take my last, I could say, hey, I did my job, right? All right, folks, we love you. Ooh, something happened right there. It was like 500 and something people. Now it's 370.
Yeah, it like stopped for a lot of people, including myself. I saw it happen on my phone. I don't know, YouTube just kind of does that sometimes. But if it happens, they just have to hit refresh or exit out of YouTube and come back.
You're like, we don't like you.
Yeah.
Our friends don't like you either. Facebook.
But luckily it happened at the end of the show. So
yeah. Now it's back up to 435. Who knows? All right, folks. Thank you. We love you. We really do. We really care about our audience. We are going to try and we get this mess taken care of in here, and we will get the mail-offs done. We are going to be doing a giveaway, a big giveaway. We're going to do like several people. We're going to do several people giveaway, and we're going to hopefully that we'll have everything done by then. Let me get the calendar out real quick. That will be on Friday the 22nd and the 23rd. We're going to do 2 days, 22nd, 23rd. We're going to do giveaways, 6 different things on each. Is 12 giveaways, like the 12 days of Christmas. That was my idea. I don't know. Might sound goofy, but we're going to do a bunch of giveaways. And in the meantime, don't forget to go and get you one of those zip-up hoodies. Everybody's taking pictures of them. They like them, everything. Everybody's been telling me how great they are. I got one of each, and I haven't even washed them, and I haven't had time to even wash them to try to wear them on the show. Let's put it that way. So this was an early Christmas present, and so I really enjoy it. I like it, and I appreciate the person that got it for me. They're a very, very cool and kind person who does a lot of great things for the world. It's myself. I just want to say it. I'm always being told how full I am of myself. He's so full of himself. He just cares about himself. Okay, well, there. I went and I said, you know what? You're right. I'm a very kind person, and I went and got myself this. So thank you, folks, for everybody that tuned in. Once again, thank you, and we'll see you. Good night.